Recording in progress.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is a work session of the Greenbelt City Council. My name is Emmett Jordan. I serve as mayor. I'm joined by my colleagues at the table.
Kristen Weaver, Mayor Pro Tem.
Jenny Pompey, council member.
Danielle Mc...
Go ahead. I don't know. Go ahead.
Danielle McKinney, council member.
Silky Pope, council member.
Amy Niesel, council member.
Okay, I don't see Mr. Roberts. He'll probably be here momentarily. Any information items for discussion at the end of the meeting? Well, I think we are going to talk about calendar a little bit, but
I have one quick thing.
Okay, thank you. So, we hold these council work sessions on Mondays, Wednesdays, several times a month to exchange information with community stakeholder groups or to gather information from staff, advisory boards, or residents. No votes or formal actions are taken at work sessions. Our work sessions and our meetings are always open to the public except for executive sessions as authorized by state law so that residents and others can observe council's deliberations. We strive to provide reasonable opportunities for the public to voice opinions on matters being considered, and we'll pause periodically for public comment. During these times, if you wish to address the council or to make a statement or ask a question, you can raise your hand if you're here in the room, and after being recognized, just step over to the podium. We need you to state your name and where you live in Greenbelt or where you live more or less. We need that information for the minutes. If you're on Zoom, you can raise your virtual hand and we'll recognize you and promote you so that you can speak. And if you are on cable TV or if you are watching on Facebook or streaming on YouTube, you can send an email to us. We'll do our best to pick up the emails. If you send an email to questions@greenbeltmd.gov, we'll try and pick up on that. As always, please limit your remarks to 3 to 5 minutes and speak on one topic related to the question under consideration. We ask that you avoid questioning the motives of others, and in general, please be civil in your remarks. So we're having a work session tonight. We're talking primarily about the Northway field and doing some security enhancements there to get a handle on the dumping that has happened over the years. But I think from looking through the packet, we're also talking about some other possible enhancements at other locations in city parks, city facilities. And Kevin Driscoll Carpenter, or is it Kevin Carpenter Driscoll? That's pretty close there. Is the staff person who's going to actually lead us through a good part of the discussion. But I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge our city manager, Josue Samaron, who is back from an extensive international vacation, traveling the world, and you're back here in Greenbelt. Welcome, Mr. Samaron.
Thank you. Welcome. Good evening. Excited to be back. I feel like the axe, the blade, whatever we want to call it these days, is sharpened. So ready to go at it again.
Well, we'll be the judge of that. You got off of a 12-hour plane ride, I guess, this morning. So thank you for being here. And let's see. So let's go ahead and dive in. Kevin, thank you for all of your good work with our parks and working with volunteers and around environmental sustainability in general with the Public Works Department. So we do have some ground to cover, and I think there's perhaps 3 different projects that we'll be talking about. Do you have a PowerPoint or do we have slides that we can kind of show while we talk?
Or just the maps?
Just the maps, yeah.
Just the maps. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Kevin, the first map, and if we can put this up, it looks to be a map of Buddy Attic Park. And it actually looks like the first thing that we're going to talk about is the proposal to move the used oil recycling area behind the public works fence.
Yeah, and this particular one, we're also going to, as the array of options, this is a follow-up to the presentation I gave to council during a regular meeting a few months ago, looking at some of these options in a little bit more detail with a few more numbers attached. Looking at a proposed fence as an option for gating off that area as well, and sort of costs associated would be something within the $27,000 ish range if that gate was automated. And I think that would be an important factor to include in any kind of fencing solution, because we do have contractors that come through there. We need to make sure that that's open at appropriate times and things like that. But the used oil shed, maneuvering that, I think I have a separate map for that. We can get to that a little bit later. And we'll just kind of go through these, talking about some of the numbers that we've come up with, working with some different contractors over the past few years, and numbers that we can apply.
So how much did you say the automated fence as opposed
The automated fence itself would be the biggest purchase. The any extra fencing to that, linear footage is about $80 per linear foot for a 6-foot high chain link fence to help kind of secure that area. But to have an automated thing with something that would be in about the $25,000 range. That's automation.
So how that would be like a key thing, or how would that?
It's like the access gates at Public Works now. Those are on a timer.
Mr. Roberts.
I was just wondering, what type of access would you be doing, like a card or?
So for that it would be timer during hours of operation for Public Works. Hours of operation for Public Works.
What kind of access, though? I mean, how would you get in the gate?
So there would be a keypad for those that had access, but otherwise it's on a timer.
No cards or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
So what, if I could, what about weekends and whatnot? People.
So that can be discussed. I mean, if we want to have weekend access for some of the sites back there, I think that is a recommendation, because we can still close off the rest of the yard with the gates that we currently have.
That makes sense. I would think that weekend access would be something we'd like to facilitate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Questions? Okay, let's. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess what is given the cost to that, what about the idea, and this might be more challenging for automating it, but the idea of having just a gate that we have open during open hours, and then, if Public Works staff opens it up and then closes it at the end of business hours. I mean, I guess that makes it a little bit more challenging on the weekends, but is that something that you've thought about? Just because I know there were also some things about security cameras there. Some of those, I think, in this same area that we're talking about, correct?
Right, and that's something that we can look at as well if we wanted to have just a manual gate. That does pose an issue if we have contractors that are trying to get in that can't get access. That was why I thought maybe an automated gate might be a better option, but it's not off the table to have just a manual gate either, which would be significantly less expensive, of course. But we also have some quotes from, I believe it was summer of 2022, looking at getting closed circuit cameras at all 3 sites. And I believe, this is further on as one of the quotes that we have. That one was more expensive because it was hardwired. The other ones were a solar powered situation.
And the contractors that are coming in are the ones that are picking up from the drop-offs. So I assume like a compost crew and picks up.
Even currently, we have MES coming in with their contractor to pick up the used oil materials.
And I assume that is mostly during weekday business hours.
Yes.
Not so it would be unlikely that they would be trying to access it on evenings and weekends.
Correct.
But I guess then, what about access for residents dropping things off, like the food scraps? Because I think that seems like that I think a lot of people doing that sort of thing are doing it on their way home from work, or when they're coming over for something in the city. So how would we address those needs of residents to be able to still access those drop-offs under the gate system?
So my thought process behind it would be either a registration process where they might get access to the key code, or maintaining hours of operation during the weekends, and that's where an automated gate would help as well, where you could say we're open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. for drop-offs during the weekend, and then those gates are closed in between times.
So,
Makes the most sense to me. Ms. Pope.
so we're just talking about the food scraps, right? That's what you were worried about?
Well,
concerned
but it's
about?
more than that, because there's the recycling bins. There's also like the clothing donation. There's the oil.
Right,
I mean,
right,
there's a
right, right,
few.
right.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if, because if we have regular business hours for the other parts, right? And if we may relocate the food scraps so people can have access, whenever they need to, possibly.
Possible.
But I think, I mean, that some of those facilities, a lot of those things, I think actually all of those things are things residents might wish to drop things off. The textile shed, the single stream recycling.
Of course,
that
and I'm
oil
not,
thing,
and
yeah.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just saying to make it a little bit easier, because if, food scraps might be something you really want to get rid of whenever you have them, right? So okay, I need to get rid of this now. But the other items are a little bit more, that you don't have to worry about so much, that you can possibly, do that at a time when it's open. But of course, weekend hours, we should have weekend hours, of course.
Yeah.
I'm just saying possibly the food, I was just worried about the food scraps. I wondered if we can make that more accessible.
Councilmember McKinney.
I just wanted to take just a quick step back because there might be people who are watching that did not hear the previous presentation. And there is nothing in the packet that actually talks about what are the challenges that we're trying to solve, so that they can understand the context of why we're asking some of these questions. So if you could provide that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. So when I came to the regular council meeting a few months back, we talked about some of the issues that we're facing at our different recycling centers that include a lot of illegal dumping, a lot of misuse of the services that we're providing, things that cost the city and staff and public works department anywhere between $36,000 a year in staff time. We're looking at things where we get improper hazardous waste disposal that's going to cost somewhere between $10,000 to $20,000 for a pickup to be properly disposed and identified. Right now, with Republic Services, we're looking at about $1,000 a month for environmental recovery fees, which covers any kind of contaminated load that they can't take to the recycling centers. That is one of the services that we offer. And as well as, for the composting site at Northway is about $15,000 to $30,000 a year, depending on how many times we get it done for the tub grinder services. So if we have a lot of material that's coming in that people are supposed to be registering for to use, it's causing a lot of cost to the city. Thank you.
Very much. Let's see. So it sounds like you want to give us a sort of an overview of each of these, and you want to circle back to
Exactly.
detailed discussion. Okay, let's roll with that.
Can I just ask a quick
Yeah,
question?
sure. Go ahead.
On the recycling center at Buddy Attic Park, so you wanting to keep that open during the week, during your working hours? The gate wouldn't be closed, right?
Right.
Okay. But then you wanted to close it down on the weekend?
No. I think weekend access is important.
Personally, I don't see why you would want to fence that area. Why?
Just to kind of restrict a lot of the illegal activity.
There's a fence, and a gate keeping you from going into the public work.
Right. A lot of the illegal activity that we're experiencing happens at late at night. People misusing, dumping illegal materials there, contaminating our recycling centers. Okay.
People have proven that you can't stick bins out there and put something on it saying what's supposed to be in there, and they throw everything else in there.
Yeah, I can
except for
put
what's
as many
supposed to
signs
be
as I
in.
can on different
Yeah,
things, but I
so-
can't make people read them.
Unless we have a facility where people are sitting there watching, that's what's going to happen, no matter day or night or
Yeah,
locked up or
and
not locked up.
secondary enforcement could be a part of it with cameras that we can enforce illegal use. But we would incur staff time that we don't have right now.
But I mean, how much does it cost to properly recycle in our society?
I agree.
Are we willing to do what we need to do to properly recycle stuff, or just we want to say we're recycling it and it all ends up in the dump? Because that's what happens a lot now.
Yeah, public education is
So-
an important factor in making sure that we're doing the correct things.
Recycling can be done well,
So-
or it can be done poorly.
So, and arguably, fencing off this recycling area would also help to secure Buddy Attic Lake Park, just as far as cars driving down that pathway all the way down to the lake and driving around down there.
Yeah.
So that would
That
be
is a
sort of
complaint I've
security
received
concern.
from some of the park rangers on the weekend times when there's been motorcycles down there, things like
Cycles.
that.
I've seen people do it during the day.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving, and we'll circle back and greater discussion.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Next slide. And this is the Hanover Parkway Recycling Center in Greenbelt East. Looking at fencing for this one, this would be a much bigger project. There's a lot more linear feet involved. Another automated gate as well, just because that is further off-site, allowing access for this contractor. There's nothing but contractor services that site, Republic Services and the textile shed. They get trash picked up there as well as the recycling, and then the textile shed is available as well. But looking in the ball field of about $35,000 to $40,000 for the whole thing. 95 linear square foot, 55 to 65 going across the road with an automated gate as well. And that's again at about $80 per square foot with a $25,000 automated gate. This one we definitely would also like to consider a camera system as well. We do have the mobile unit that we would like to deploy there and see if that is something that works. We're still working on training for that. I think that's hopefully scheduled within the next month or so, so we can actually start testing it, using it, and seeing if it is an effective solution. If it does prove to be so, we might consider adding a permanent station there if this is an area that we want to keep.
Okay. Next.
And here at the Northway compost area and the millings pile, we get a lot of different kinds of construction debris dumped back there illegally that causes a lot of staff time cleaning up and properly disposing of. The compost site is supposed to be used by city residents that have registered through Dr. Robles. She gives out permits for use there, and we're seeing a lot of the local contractors have been using it, and it's increasing the pile, and we don't have the capacity to handle that much safely. That compost, the mulch pile itself, we do a good job of turning it, but in those hotter times during the summer, that does pose a potential fire risk. Those things can spontaneously combust. So trying to get a handle on how much material we have and what's going in there, I think would be to a benefit to the city. So looking at proposed gates that we would maintain, these ones would be not automated just because of logistical concerns with access to power and things like that. But looking at having staff maybe working with the ranger system to open the gates during, and locking, keeping hours of operation there. So 2 sites before, when you first come in on Northway Road is one option. Further down, because we know we talked about keeping access to those trail entrances as being an important aspect, but trying to keep access to the different sites limited at that first junction between the millings and the compost site. This one, we're also going to be utilizing a lot of that mobile camera system. We do have a quote for a solar powered system, which was in the $13,000 range. But that,
So I thought I know we have one mobile camera license plate reader that's actually come in, so we have one.
Yep.
So in this discussion, you're proposing that we acquire more than one, or are you sort of suggesting that we have?
This would be a more site-specific permanent one, just as an option. I'm not saying that this is what we need, because the mobile camera unit could do all of that, and we'll find that out in the coming months. I was hoping we could have a little bit more action with that before this meeting, but getting the scheduling has been challenged.
Okay. Roberts?
Thank you. There's another big problem with that mulch pile. It's an environmental hazard. It's polluting the creek down below it, and there's all kind of plastic that's coming out of the site as well, because people go down and they dump their stuff in plastic bags, and it's got bottles, plastic bottles, all kind of stuff. Because I go down there regularly and check on it, And the way the place is graded and everything's just, all that water that leaches down into that pile and out is going right down the hill into the creek. So I don't know what the fencing is going to do up there. Because you put fencing, people are just going to dump the stuff outside the fence. So I don't think fencing down, at the end of Northway is worth the money that we would pay for it. But, along with the security stuff, I think we need to clean up the site. We need to make the site environmentally sustainable, because it's not. And we need to get rid of the asphalt millings and the other stuff that the city has dumped down there. The piles of dirt that are constantly getting pushed farther and farther into the forest preserve.
Yeah, those piles are no longer being used, and they're dwindling down.
Well, I hope they're going to dwindle. I wish you would just get rid of them and be done with it, because when you have junk like that laying around, it encourages people that want to dump other junk. They say, hey, here's a pile of crap right here. I'll dump my stuff there. So
Yeah, so that's the point of the gate, is to help curb people that want to do that.
I support a gate up there near Ridge Road. I think that's a good idea. At nighttime, whenever the park is closed, you should close the gate. That's going to be the only effective thing. But putting fences down there around the mulch pile and all that, that's a worthless endeavor. And I'm not going to vote to spend our money on that.
We're certainly not going to vote. This is a work session to begin with. We're
Yeah,
trying
but
to get
eventually
information.
we will.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and I don't think that it doesn't look like there's any fencing proposed as part of this site. It's simply the gates.
Yeah.
And do you have an estimate on how much to install the gate, since this is hopefully a cheaper gate than since it's
Yeah,
not
this one,
automated?
we already have it. It's in-house.
okay.
Yeah. It's
So
very,
that's-
very inexpensive. We just got to figure out where exactly we want to put it.
And is most of the problems with dumping at Northway Fields near the millings pile or near the compost site and the mulch? It's both. Okay. Because one concern, I think that the concerns we've heard expressed about this are access to the North Track Forest Preserve trails, which of course the trail heads are along the road there, which might be a challenge with the gate near a ridge. Also the residence drop off, we talked about that a little bit, and then evening access for the observatory. But if they're having an event, I think we would be able to make arrangements for that to be opened, or if it's a combination lock, give people who are authorized to do that. Because I guess one thought I had was, and do people if people are going down to those Northway trails, or to the trails along there, some of them probably go and park by Northway Fields and then walk back to go on the trail. This would sort of require people to park along the side of the road. And I guess I don't know about events at Northway Fields, but if what I was thinking about was whether a third possible location would be on the other side of the access to the parking. But if there are also problems with dumpings at the milling piles, that doesn't necessarily, then I think, although I'm not sure I agree with Rodney that people will just dump it by the fence, but I think if a vehicle can access one of those but can't access the others, then I think you would have people just driving over and dumping.
Yeah, it's a bit of a logistical nightmare just to make it work perfectly. There's no perfect solution. I think we've mentioned something like that before. But yeah, trying to limit access, control hours of operation, I think sets the example that we are aware that these activities are going on. We're trying to do something about it. We do this in conjunction with the mobile camera system. Well, hopefully we can start enforcing that. But we can also work closely with the recreation department, who has, permitting rights over those fields. We can work closely with them and the ranger staff to allow hours of operation for any, if they have an event going on, we can find a way to make that work.
And probably in general, the idea would be the gates would be open during the day, but then closed for the evening, and then opened again on the weekend, or if there's an evening event where it's necessary.
Right.
Okay, it almost seems like it's council's will to, get into a full-blown discussion on this before, covering the other one, circling back. So is that
We
council's
only
will?
have one left to go. Oh, I mean, I can wait. That's fine.
When would you close the gate? What time?
Oh, hours of operation hours are negotiable. I mean, if we were following, I would just say dawn to dusk. These general park allowances.
Yeah, I really do have a number of questions and want to get into a deeper discussion, and we have residents that want to talk about it and weigh in. So let's just quickly, the fourth diagram you have.
Yeah, and this is relocating the oil recycling center, um, working with MES, and this is their program. They collect the oil. They use a subcontractor who collects the oil, and then they refine the oil for whatever plastic parts or whatever they're making with that. Um, but to move that location from up there to behind the Public Works yard, where we do already have a camera system, we do have hours of operation that are enforced with an automated gate, and making that a system that you really do need to be a City of Greenbelt resident. You need to register for the program to have access to it. Because one of the biggest issues we have there is contractors who aren't supposed to be using that site. It's not what it's designed for. We don't have the capacity for. We get lots of 5-gallon buckets that overflow our system and jam it up. Um, but we have been offered a new 500-gallon double-walled oil tank to collect this with. All we would need to do is pour a new secondary containment, which the secondary containment at the current location is starting to fail. It's almost as old as I am, so it's been there for quite a time. So we're either going to need to redo that location, or I propose putting it into a new site. So pouring concrete is in a ballpark of about high end $8,000, plus lumber for a lean-to shed. Is about 1,500. I'd say 5 to 8 for concrete pouring. Yeah.
How much do you make? How big do you make?
For that one, I believe the walls need to be at least a foot thick for containment.
This MSC specifications for what?
Yeah, for proper secondary containment.
And
8-inch walls that hold houses.
Well, I mean, if that's the requirement from MSC, that's what
You
we
mean
have
for
to
this
conform
one,
to.
I don't think it costs $8,000.
and how much was the lumber for the shed?
In the ballpark of about $1,500.
Okay, so that's an overview of four proposals, and we could work our way back and go back to the beginning. Why don't we just stay where we are and talk about this in greater detail? So, specifically, I know that our Public Works Department, to some extent, works 7 days a week, and so on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, what would the potential hours of the relocated oil recycling center be if they conform to the hours when we had personnel there?
Yeah, so for this location, I would like to control where they would not have weekend access. That we wouldn't have the staff on site, the number of staff on site to monitor it as well as we do during the week. And as a result, I would like to offer that we have it as part of our quarterly events for electronics recycling, styrofoam, and then have residents be able to come and bring proof of ID and up to, I would like to say, 2 of the 5-quart containers. Because what this program is for that homeowner that does their own oil changes. And there's no reason to believe that you're doing 5-gallon buckets at a time for oil changes if you're just doing your own vehicle.
I suspect that some of the people who are abusing the system may actually be Greenbelt residents who have sort of home businesses working on other people's cars. But we want to encourage people to recycle their oil. So the weekend access is just with all of these proposals is a bit of a sore point. Just trying to make sure that people can recycle when they actually do these things, and perhaps that's more likely to happen on a weekend. So back to the question about when the most employees, public work employees, are actually available. Is there some peak time, Saturdays and or more employees there doing things on Saturday?
No,
as
it's
opposed to
it's minimal
Sundays?
staff there during the weekends. I mean, you're talking about a cleaning crew, a bus driver, and doing the rounds of pickups for milk runs. There's not a lot of staff other unless I'm doing an event that weekend.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
So how would it, because the gates at Public Works are open during weekday hours, so would it just be, would there be somehow a lock on the shed, or how would you still prevent, would somebody just have to be watching cameras to make sure that someone is there? How would you actually prevent people from just coming in through that open gate and dumping just like they are now?
Yeah, for this program, I would like to introduce a registration part to it and have that be you register, you get access to the key code
Okay, so it'd be a key code
Yeah.
access as well. Okay.
to get into the tank itself. I have a keypad lock on that. The gates are actually kept closed during hours of operation on the weekends.
Okay.
What time would the gates close during the week?
During the week, it's 5 o'clock.
5. So it'd be not 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock?
The gates open, I believe, at 7.
Councilmember McKinney?
2 questions. The first is, if we were to move towards this, what would you see the potential cost savings or positive impact when it comes to staffing? So how much money or time or level of effort do you feel as though the team would be saving by taking this solution? That's and the second question is, if you had to prioritize, because there's 3 different sites, is there one that is in more need than the other with these different proposals? And how would you prioritize them?
Sure. So for this site and this proposal, this would save a lot of staff time. When we get those large hits where people are just leaving full 5-gallon buckets, it takes hours to empty those out. And sometimes we got to wait for the contractor to get there to empty the tanks themselves before we can empty the rest of them in. So there's a big staff time with that, and that happens at least once a month. Maybe not quite so often. If I were to say that there's a priority, I mean, I would go at the discretion of working closer with the public works staff. I know that I see more often the ones that are at Buddy Attic, and I feel like they're a lot more manageable at a lower cost. Talking about under $10,000 to make this move happen, and then we'll look at demoing that site. It would also reduce the amount of stuff that we're getting illegally, different hazardous materials that aren't supposed to be there, that we end up having to collect, store, and then find a way to properly dispose of, which is one of those $10,000 to $20,000 per pickup items.
Mr. Roberts?
So where is the next available place for people to dump their oil?
So Brown Station landfill does take hazardous materials, including oil, used paints, and things like that. They do that from Thursday through Saturday.
So Brown Station, that's a long way away. And what I'm thinking is that, just because someone brings a 5-gallon bucket doesn't mean they're a business or anything else, because a lot of people, they change their oil, they dump it into a 5-gallon bucket, and they're not going to bring half a 5-gallon bucket. They're going to wait until it's full, and they're going to come down with their 5-gallon bucket and dump it out. The problem is the people that come down there and leave it there and don't dump it into the thing. That's the problem, as I see it.
Yeah.
I think this whole...
I've gotten
I think this
times where
whole-
I've had about 25-gallon buckets left there.
How many?
20. And that was after they emptied a
I
bunch
go down
in
there
there.
a lot, and I
Yeah.
go down there a lot. I've never seen that many. I've seen 4 or 5, 6 or something like that. But sometimes I'll dump it in there for them because somebody's got to do it. But anyway, I think the whole mentality going around this is wrong, because we need to have available places for people to dump that stuff. Otherwise, they're going to dump it in the woods, in the creek, down the storm drain. That's what's going to happen. People are not going to drive all the way to Brown Station Road to get rid of their oil. They're going to dump it somewhere. So this is very short-sighted, this whole thing about, we have to block off this oil dumping. That's wrong. We need more places like that for people to dispose of this stuff, because they're going to, period. And we see all the time when people are dumping paint in the neighborhoods, because it runs right down the creek next to the ball fields there, and the creek is white or red or blue or whatever kind of paint they're dumping. So this whole thing that you're doing, I think is wrong. And the 5 gallon thing is definitely wrong because we should be encouraging people to bring more oil because that's a valuable commodity. So we should be working with the local businesses. So if they want a place to get rid of their oil, we should be working with them to help them dispose of it. Not saying, no, you got to drive down the Brown Station Road. Forget it, you can't come here. That's wrong. We need to work with people to get that oil recycled properly,
Okay, thank
not
you.
cut them off.
Thank
I
you.
think this whole thing is wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember.
I know this would just be conjecture because you don't do any permitting or tracking right now, but I'm just curious, as someone who has not changed her own oil in over 20 years, how many residents do you feel are coming there for personal uses versus how many more industrial type, let's say, uses?
I would say that the majority of users right now are not residential.
So what I'm hearing is that right now we're offering a service that is really only being taken advantage of by larger corporations.
Correct.
Now, if it were a greenbelt business, for example, a restaurant who is willing or wanting to recycle their oil, would you be willing to issue them a permit? Would there be a fee attached to that? I'd like to know more if you'd thought
Yeah,
about that.
that's something that we can discuss, as we get further into these options and, how we're going to manage this program. But right now we don't have any handle on it. We don't have any way of controlling who comes, who uses it. It's just open access and people just leave what they want there. So that's what we're trying to accomplish.
And I did have just one last question. It sounds, from everything that you said before and also tonight, that this oil garage is the biggest problem because that's where lots of people leave like their paint and other things. How much of a problem is the rest of the yard if you take that oil out? I guess how much of a priority is it once the oil is removed to have the automated gate there?
Yeah, the food scrap system runs really well. The recycling, we do get a certain amount of contamination, whether it be people throwing in, car parts in there. I found tires, all kinds of different things that, people see a big dumpster, they go, oh, I'm going to put something in that. So there is an issue with that. So it's something that maybe a camera system could help alleviate. Hours of operation might help alleviate. If that answers your question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I could, you mentioned the 500-gallon double wall container, and you said something about MSC. So are they giving us a grant to pay for that, or is that something?
No, they have it and they want to give it to us.
They want to give it to us.
Yes, they think it's a good idea to move it back behind.
What's the value of that 500-gallon double wall?
I believe it's about $2,000, $2,500.
You said 8,000 for the concrete, and of course that's kind of been disputed here, but that's the upper range.
That's the higher range, yeah.
Okay, and 1,000, 1,500 for the lumber. But I do concur that we're trying to encourage people to recycle. The question of is it it's probably not corporations. Is it companies or contractors that are outside of Greenbelt? Is it Greenbelt residents who have businesses, so to speak, or maybe actual Greenbelt businesses, not big corporations, but businesses, or is it individuals? That's a valid question, but I'm troubled by the weekend access question because I know as an individual, if I were changing my oil, I'd probably be doing it on a Saturday or a Sunday, and apartment or a condominium, you'd have to put it in a 5-gallon container or a small container and stash it someplace until the weekend, and then you'd have to remember on the weekend. So that would be a substantial inconvenience. But we're just talking. It's a work session. We're trying to flesh out how we can move ahead, and I think it's a mistake to just say this whole thing's a terrible idea. Let's just throw it out and just continue to have a situation that's kind of untenable. Let's see. Mayor Pro Tem, then Ms. McKinney, then Mr. Robertson.
Yeah, so I guess I'm still not sure if people are bringing, so I understand the key code access to a lock on the tank, but if what people are doing now is bringing these containers and just setting them next to the the container. I guess I'm not totally sure. I mean, maybe they'd be thrown off a little bit by going into the official public works, and maybe some people would turn back and not do that because it looks much more official. But I guess what I'm not sure of is that locked tank going to stop people from still driving in and taking out their tanks of oil and setting it next to the tank because they don't have the key code access to the tank. I mean, do you think that would be, I mean, I guess it's sort of an easier sight line for Public Works employees, but do you think it would solve the problem?
Well, that is kind of part of why I think it's important to keep it during Public Works hours of operation and including the quarterly drop-offs. That way we can keep an eye on it closely. We can communicate with the people that are trying to leave things there and say, hey, you need to register for this program, you need to be a Greenbelt resident, whatever it might be. We also do have cameras on site already that we can
That's true,
do
so
any
you
kind of
could
secondary
monitor.
enforcement. Right?
Yeah. And I was thinking something similar as Amy was talking about, that that maybe there's a way to still continue to offer it as a free service for residents who are changing their oil, but figure out a way to allow others who are doing it as part of a business to pay to pay for that privilege, to not have to go to Brown Station landfill, but still be able to bring their oil. Although I don't know if that is within the allowed requirements of the program that we work with.
Is for the program we work with, it is really just for residents. It's not supposed to be for these commercial entities that are supposed to be paying to have their oil recycled. And a lot of what they're doing is just trying to skip out on that fee that they're supposed to be incurring.
And it is, and I think that it is just motor oil. It is not the cooking oil that we're collecting there.
Yeah, we do not collect cooking
Yeah.
oil, but it does get left there.
Well, yeah, I think.
Councilmember Pompey.
About how long does it usually take for it to fill up the current tank that we have?
It depends on usage. Right now we have two 275-gallon tanks. If it's just the residents that are mostly using it, it could take a long time for that to fill up. But I have seen it get blown up over a weekend where it was only a quarter full, each tank a quarter full, and then it's overflowing into the secondary containment.
Is there like a regular pickup schedule, or do you just wait till it's full and then?
They
call
have
for
the
pickup?
subcontractor for MES has a pretty regular pickup cycle that they do. They do the entire state. It's staffed by about 3 guys, and it's not the most well-funded program that the state runs. They run at a loss right now. They're not making a lot of money on the used oil. So this contractor is picking up for free because they are using it to refine and turn into other plastics and things like that.
So when it's overflowing or overfull, do we just have to wait until it's our turn, or can you call and
Call
ask
them
for a
in, and then
pickup?
it usually takes anywhere between a few days to a week or two, depending on how busy they are, how staffed they are.
And what happens to, so I know about the oil, and my husband and I have gone there before, and I've seen like paint cans stacked up. What do you do with that stuff?
We collect it, and we have it in storage right now. Yeah, it's taking up a lot of space in our base.
Roberts?
When it comes to paint, if it's not oil-based paint, if it's just regular house paint, you take the top off, you let it dry out, and then you throw it in the garbage can. That's
Yeah.
what you do.
And staff for the latex paints that do get left there, we open up the top, let it dry out, and do a few cans at a time. But
I just
a
want to
lot.
say that, it's not corporations that are using that down there, because any big company that has trucks and they have mechanics and stuff, they have their own recycling.
I
Trucks
don't mean
come
to make
right
it sound
them
like
and
it's
take
like
the stuff,
a Jiffy Lube or anything like
Yeah.
that. No, it's smaller commercial entities. Yeah, for sure.
I think that, that by locking it up on the weekend, you're hurting the citizens of Greenbelt. That's who's using it most. I don't think it's outsiders or corporations. That's not the people that are using it. It's mostly Greenbelt citizens. Because like I say, I go down there, I use it, and I see the people that come and go, and I don't see the people that are dumping all their stuff down there. Once in a while I will, but I don't think that problem is so bad.
Evenings and weekends.
What I want to see, all I want to see is that we have a program that will encourage people to bring it down there and properly recycle it. I don't think we, should be cutting out any small, even if it was like, the gas stations here in Greenbelt or something. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing because, like I say, otherwise they're going to dump it somewhere illegally. And we need, there's enough of that going on. We need to encourage people. So I think we need to come up with a better system than just cutting it off and just giving, permits to residents or something. I think that's counterproductive. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ms. Pope.
Yeah, I think the last work session we had, you had all these pictures of all the things that are dumped and how, and all the masses of paint cans and the oil issue and everything. And it's unfortunate that we don't have that tonight, just as a refresher, because it was quite an amount. And so remind us, how much does this cost to clean up? Because, our taxpayers paying for for this illegal activity that's going on. So we kind of want to, stop that from happening as well. So, but how much is that cost just for this oil issue that we're having?
Yeah, and for taking the hazardous material itself, keeping space for that, trying to have a contractor come up who will properly dispose it. It was $10,000 to $20,000 per pickup. Staff time, for the whole year is $36,000 for all the different sites. But you're talking about a few hours of time each time one of these sites gets illegally used. And that happens just about at any one of the sites. It's happening just about every day that they're spending time, especially like Greenbelt East.
So every time we have, so if like you said, we're on a regular schedule to have this oil tank emptied out. But if we call in between, we're paying for that, right?
Luckily, that program is run through the state, is offered to municipalities for free. But again, it is meant for residential. You talk to any other municipality, they'll say they also have the same issues that we're having, trying to find solutions like this to get a better handle on it.
I'm sure they know where to go and who has these opportunities, so they, spread. So yeah, unfortunately, and a few bad apples, in that basket, making it hard for everybody else. So that's, but I do like the idea of maybe moving it, and I think we discussed it last time, and I think that would be probably a good solution. Unfortunately, so maybe once it dies down, after a while, we can, loosen it up a little bit. But unfortunately, seems like what we have to do.
Hey, real quick, let me circle back to the MES, the 500-gallon double wall tank. They want to give it to us. Is that something, can they just give it to us, then we can decide what to do with it, or is it time constrained? We have to agree to do certain things before they would give it to us.
Oh no, they have it. They said they had it available. I said I want it. They want me to take it as soon as possible. Right now, he just emailed me the other day saying, it's like, what's going on with that? And I was like, oh, let you know soon.
It's not large enough, so it's overflowing or it's filling up.
It's 275, so it would be, the capacity would be about, I think, was it 50 gallons less, but they're not double walled. They are old. There is a possibility they have some pinhole leaks that are helping leak into the secondary containments. This one would be double walled, very sturdy. It'd be a lot easier to manage and handle, which is why we want to make sure that we're not over encumbering that fact that it is only 500 gallons.
Right. So I'm thinking that,
Oh, it's a really wide system. It's actually a little bit shorter than the other one, the ones that we currently have.
Thank you.
No.
Let's see, I wasn't finished with my question. So with the current location, so the other proposal of fencing the access, which I'm thinking more and more, it's a bit of a safety issue. The idea of people, motorcycles or cars driving back into the lake, that could be a real problem. And right now, you can just drive right down there. Mm-hmm. So the idea of limiting the access and also sort of buffering the current recycling area is attractive. I think it's probably a good idea. But I'm thinking, what if, in terms of moving forward, we could do this incrementally, maybe with fencing off that area, maybe that would be enough in the current location to actually limit, especially if we have a camera there as well, limit the kind of dumping that we're seeing there now. So
if we have a camera there, that might help with that access available, where we could enforce, actually enforce the no dump, the illegal dumping signs that we have there.
But the weekend access, I think that's really important. I think most people, if it's really targeted towards residential use, and most people who are changing their oil, they're probably not doing it during the week. They're probably doing it on a weekend, and they're probably not interested in keeping the old oil for quarterly recycling, or they want to change their oil and if recycle it. But if they don't have that convenience, they're going to do something else. Mayor Pro Tem.
So I guess thinking about that, I might have thought of doing it the reverse. If this is the biggest issue, if we move this and then we see if we actually need the gate. But could we, if we decide to do it the other direction and think about the gate, but then would we be able to get that new tank and put it in the current location?
That site, if that's the route that we want to go, we're going to have to redo that site anyways, just because those secondary containments are starting to fail.
Okay.
So regardless, I would like to take that tank from MES and move forward. Yeah.
But if is the concrete pad big enough that would we
Have to demo it.
So
and
so
then
we'd have to
make
demo the whole thing.
adjustments.
So we
Yeah.
wouldn't actually save any money doing that because we'd still have to pour a new concrete pad and probably build a new shed. So that doesn't and then it's not as if we could just put the tank there, and if we decide to move it later, it would be, so it's still going to cost us the $9,500 to basically to
Give
do
or
it
take,
there
yeah.
anyway. Could we get an exact number for how many times we had that hazardous waste pickup, like how much it cost either the last fiscal year or the last calendar year, just to get an actual sense of what we are paying in that hazardous waste?
Yeah, so far we haven't had a pickup done, just because the price has been so high. So I've had a number of quotes come back from a number of contractors to see what we can work with. And that initial one is definitely going to be the biggest one, but that price could come down. But just not having to incur that price is the goal.
But yeah, just even if it's just like for last calendar year, how many times we had to incur that $10,000 to $20,000 per visit, just to get a sense of, because you told us the staff time, but it'd just be useful to be able to truly compare the numbers. Yeah.
Just to be clear, my suggestion is to get the tank, consider limiting access there to the current recycling area, and just seeing if that works enough so that we don't necessarily have to re-pour the concrete. And if it doesn't work, then next step would be to actually move the location, pour the concrete, and build the new containment, and put the new thing. But I think we should go ahead and get the tank.
Like we can't put the new tank in without.
The
We
current
can't-
containment system.
Say it again. So my suggestion is to just limit the access, keep the current tanks there, but by limiting the access, just seeing if that actually alleviates enough of the problem that we can keep it there, but still get the tank.
No, I understand. Okay,
That's
thank you.
Ms. Pope, or was it Ms. Poppy?
So you want to get the current tanks are very old and have pinhole leaks, you said, right? And are leaking into secondary containment, right? So
They do
So-
need to be replaced.
okay, they need to be replaced. So my suggestion would be just replace it and move the entire thing, and have everything brand new, and for a safer for environmental reasons as well.
Just the weekend access thing. That's a little bit of a deal breaker.
But I think the issue is, of course, we want to make it as most convenient for everyone as you possibly can, but in this case, I think we're going to have to see. We might have to make adjustments later on. Maybe we have to have one Saturday or every second Saturday for a couple hours somebody there that can accommodate the people who want to drop off or something like that. But I do think we have to make a decision on this soon, and so we can get this at least going, because that seems to be a big money grabber for us. And like I said, it's taxpayers' money going towards this misuse.
Yeah, and if we can effectively enforce our, illegal dumping policies, whether through cameras or limiting access and things like that, it would eventually pay for itself in that regard.
Jenny, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering, would that be your preference would be to move it into Public Works?
I don't have a particular preference.
Okay.
I just want a solution that we can get behind, and these are just options that we've come up with. I do hear the weekend access. That's an issue. The only compromise I can really think of, because we can't have weekend access to the public when there's not enough people there to keep an eye on it, and you're not really trying to get too many people walking in there when the crews are working. That could end up being a safety hazard.
Yeah, I can't see how having it. It seems like my guess is a lot of the problem also happens on the weekend. So
Yeah,
I just don't.
generally it's always on the weekends.
I can't see how that can work. But I do think having maybe even more than quarterly, though, maybe we could do monthly pickups. But if you're changing your own oil at your house, like you do that about quarterly. I mean, it depends on your mileage. So it's not like, every week you need to bring oil in. So I don't know. It seems like there could be some kind of solution there to allow some access on the weekends, but still keep it locked away.
Okay, Councilmember McKinney.
You had mentioned that Dr. Robles was going to have licenses for access. Is that correct?
Oh no, that's for the compost site over at Northway. She hands out residential permits for that.
Is there a cost for
I-
that?
Maybe $50, maybe less. I'm not sure.
Don't think so.
Okay.
I think you just have to. I think you just have to register, and I think you're supposed to read the information about what is allowed to be taken there, and sort of sign something that says you agree to that. But there's not a cost to it.
And be a resident.
Yeah, you have to be a resident. So I think that's sort of the check. But of course, then it's never actually really verified. It's sort of an honor system sort of thing, which the people who are willing to go and get the permit and stuff are not the people causing the problems.
And then one other follow-up question with the controlled access, right? Will you be able to track who's coming in through that controlled access? Like, is there some sort of code, or it's like a keypad, but do you know who you will be giving it to, so you can say, well, primary residents, like how will you, I'm just thinking about in the future, you could actually have some metrics around that, right?
Yeah, and I think that would be where monitoring systems would be important to enforce that, because I don't have technology wise, I wasn't planning on getting anything so grand.
Okay. Thanks.
Mr. Roberts.
I think it's kind of a dangerous situation if we have people going into the public works yard all the time, because you have trucks coming and going, you got equipment coming and going, all that stuff going on. I don't think we should really, I think maybe we should just keep it at the site we have now, control the time and the access. But I can't imagine having a bunch of cars all the time going into the public works
Yeah,
yard.
and that's why that would also
I
be
think
a plan to
I think that's a
reduce
big
who's
safety
using it. Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
A big issue, because someone gets hurt, we're going to be sued out of the place. So I think my personal opinion would be try to keep it where it is, but just control it better. But I think at the same time we need to work with, like I said, with people that need a place to dispose of their stuff. So that they can. I mean, if it's a free service that the state's providing to take the oil, we should spread that around. Everyone should get to use it, not just us, because it's a state thing. Like Buddy Attic Park, we can't cut people outside off because we get funding from the state to take care of the park. So we can't say, oh, you're from Beltsville, you can't come to the park. So and I think that the oil issue is, like I said before, it's a big issue because people are out there just dumping it to get rid of it, and that's hurting us all.
And a lot of the other municipalities in the area have their own systems.
Which other municipalities in the area have their own systems?
College Park, Hyattsville, New Carrollton. I don't think Bowie definitely does.
Imagine the folks in Berwyn Heights are probably coming over, and we're helping them
Beltsville,
out.
yeah.
So what would be if the tank, if the location was kept in the current place that it is, and access was limited just as far as demoing and installing the 500-gallon double-walled container, how long would it take to do that?
That's a good question. We can look at that further and get an answer back to city management.
So, and with the camera thing, there are already cameras at the gate there, the Public Works,
In the yard,
in the yard, inside.
inside, but we don't have any eyes up at the recycling center.
Is electricity easily accessible there? I guess there's pretty good sun.
Yeah, and I do have in the packet, there is a quote that we got a few years ago for a camera system there, and that one ended up being on the more expensive side compared to the other ones, but that was for the hard wiring, which you would think, yeah, which you would think it wouldn't be as expensive, but apparently it is. But at the time, that estimate was in about $16,000. Probably add another 30% to be a more realistic number currently in current economy.
Although that was a license plate reader camera too, would we still want to do that?
I believe you would want to do that if you were to be effective. Yes.
So my inclination would be to keep it in the current location and redo demo, depending on the cost and the amount of time that it would take, and limit access into the recycling area in general, and somehow trying to figure out if there's a way to make it accessible on weekends. Yeah. Jenny.
To Mr. Roberts' point about, encouraging business entities to recycle, which I mean, I think that's a fair point. We don't want anyone dumping their oil, but the free program offered by the state is intended for residents, though, right? It's not supposed to be used by businesses. They have to pay a fee. So we couldn't really
Yeah, I think
open
that
this up and say, let the
circumnavigate
businesses come in, because we would be,
is for.
not using the
Maybe
program
that's
to its
something we
purpose.
need to, change that. Maybe that's really not.
Well, I mean, there could be other ways, though, that we could help people
Because
recycle the oil, but
Business
this
people
seems
pay
like we couldn't do it.
taxes too. In fact, we pay a lot.
I suspect, I don't know, some of the overutilization would be entrepreneurial residents that are, changing their neighbor's oil, and maybe 5 or 6 different neighbors, and it adds up. And I don't know. Well, is it okay? Let's move on. And do you want to move back to?
Do we want to do resident
let's
comment
take
on
that.
this-
Yes,
on
there's
this
one comment,
issue?
but the comment
I think the
online
comment
is
Northway.
about Northway Field. Let's take a couple of any resident questions. Mr. Schachter had his hand up first.
I wasn't here when all of this was originally discussed, so maybe you already have the answers to this, but sitting here tonight, I don't have a really clear understanding of what the problem is. The word is used, illegal dumping. Well, to me, that could break down into 2 categories. The identity of the person dumping, resident or not resident, or the nature of the materials being dropped off. And as a homeowner, drawing on only that experience, what are the things that a homeowner resident is most likely going to drop off, if they're going to drop off anything? And it seems to me that is motor oil, paint, electronics, and tires. I don't know how much of each of those things you're seeing, but I'd like to hear that you have a better handle on just the quantities of each and what they are. And then a suggestion with respect to the motor oil, which I suspect is the biggest problem, because that's what you've all been talking about. How about having a trailer that could hook up to a small truck, and with a big sign saying, place your used oil on this in this trailer, or on this trailer bed. Once a week, haul it away to Brown Station Road. How much could that possibly cost? And little labor involved if people actually do it. And that may be a fix. And then my last comment, I couldn't agree more with Mr. Roberts that first principle, as it is for doctors, do no harm. And if you're going to set up something where people are going to just dump outside the gate instead of inside the gate, you've done more harm than good.
Kevin, we don't really see a lot of tires, do we?
Oh, we get a good amount of tires.
Really? What do we do with them?
Those go into our tire recycling. We incur the cost.
Where do people dump them? Why? I guess they dump them in our streams and whatnot mostly.
They leave it at the recycling center too.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And how much is that to recycle? That's going to be
I don't know the number off the top of my head. I'm
quite
sorry.
expensive probably as
Yeah, it
well.
is. It's
Because
not-
it's
it's
very
not cheap.
hazardous.
Yeah.
And normally, I think nowadays, people do dump them. I know because when I do the stream cleanup, we can always pull out some tires. But yes, but normally wherever you get your tires changed, they take them, and of course you have to pay a fee like per tire or something, right? Yeah. Well, very unfortunate. Yeah.
Do you want to respond to other parts of the comment?
So you're right about the materials that we are getting. Is mostly a lot of the tires, paint, different sort of hazardous materials that are not being properly disposed of, and we don't have the facilities to handle those. We don't have the capacity to handle the amount that is being left there. This program that's being run is not run by the city of Greenbelt. It's actually run through a state program, and we work as a host site for the state program. So in terms of who's allowed, what materials are taken, is not something that we have control over. As so much as we have a site we want our residents to use. If they are doing, at-home car changes, that's great. We have an oil filter, and we also take antifreeze. That all goes to the same contractor at a less successful rate, I would say. So that would be the biggest issues that we're facing.
Mentioned working with the contractor, or I know, how often do we have to send things down to Brown Station?
Every day we do a trash pickup. Yeah,
So that's through a contractor or a Greenbelt
that's
employer?
just for city of Greenbelt. When our refuse guys are going around picking up city waste collection.
It's a long drive, that's for sure. Let's see, we got another question, number two. For Mr. Orleans had his hand up first.
Bill Orleans, resident. As a general rule, I'm not in favor of the state nor the city recording the activities of people in the city, residents or visitors. That said, and that would be either through mobile or stationary photography. That said, the more important question here is what to do with our refuse. And as it's been suggested before, I at least view refuse as a public problem. And while much of the residences in the city are picked up by our Public Works Department, much of our residences in the city are not. They're picked up by private contractors. While some small portion of commercial activity in Greenbelt may, and I'm not certain of this, be picked up by our Public Works Department, overwhelmingly most of the commercial facilities of the city are picked up by private carters. And I don't think we have any sense of who those private carters are, and even if licensed, what they're doing with what's on their trucks. In the long run, in the short run, it might cost Greenbelt more money from its budget. But in the long run, I think it would save Greenbelt monetarily if we were, and it would certainly make sense as far as what the end result of our refuse is. It would, in the long run, I think it would make more sense for Greenbelt, as should any jurisdiction, be responsible for the collection of refuse from the entirety of the jurisdiction. And I would wish council would, and management, as has been suggested, would study the issue of what we do with our trash.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, please.
Is this an appropriate time to talk about?
I think we'll go back
We're
to
gonna
that
go
one,
back to
yeah.
that,
That's fine.
Yeah. But we do have a relevant comment to this one online.
Oh, that just came in.
Yeah. Kathy Legendre.
Why don't you go ahead and read it?
Yeah, so Kathy Legendre Eastway says, why not do a pilot project using the tag reader cameras at each site in conjunction with issuing heavy fines to those illegally dumping? Hold off on spending large sums of funds on gates and fences until the end of the pilot program. Is that, can we issue fines based on that?
We can, and Kevin talked a little bit about this earlier. We had hoped that the system will be operational so that we could try it out and see what kind of impact we were seeing from the deployment of the trailer cameras. And if you recall, we purchased only one camera to try it out, see what kind of impact we were having, so that we could start deploying this technology more as needed throughout the city.
But it sounds like our tanks need to be replaced regardless, someplace or the other. Is that something though? Could we do? Could we do that? Could we try and hold off? I mean, hopefully we'll get the training soon, and even that might even give us more information about from who's actually dumping, and if it really is. I mean, if there are particular times, rather than, I mean, sounds like we do need to replace the tank regardless, though.
Yes, it does. It does.
We have a couple issues, right? We do need to do something about the tank and the infrastructure for the oil collection. The technology, the trailer cameras, it's a useful technology. The system would to give us car counts and multiple things. So we look forward to deploying that regardless.
No, I just want to remind everyone that, we have sessions. Proposals come from staff and others, and we talk about them. But in order to take action, we'd have to have a specific proposal. We'd have to approve it at a meeting. So just because we're talking about this doesn't mean that we're about to pull the trigger and do something in March, April, May. This discussion, the possibility of these things happening probably wouldn't happen until the next fiscal year, like August or September at best, if we decided to go forward. So sometimes, we have a discussion and people get fired up because it seems like we're about to do something, and we're really trying to talk it out, think it out, and give the public plenty of time to weigh in. Hey, let's move on. Do you want to move on to the recycling area, since we're already kind of talking about that? Is there any additional discussion on that? I think the more I think about it, I think limiting access to the road back there is a good idea.
I agree, and I wrote myself a note to consider barriers past the
I think one more, should I go back? One more.
the loop, past the loop to returning to
One more, sorry.
the
very first one.
recycling center. I think it makes sense to put up some sort of barrier there. Primarily, as I'm thinking of it as a safety measure.
Yeah, a safety measure.
Right, because, well, just this afternoon we were doing a tour and we drove back there, and it's too easy to get through.
So with the recycling location, you said with the automated gate is $25,000.
Yeah.
That would there'd be an access code. So you're thinking that anyone who uses the area, whether it be for food scraps or recycling their oyster shells or clothing, would need to register and get a key code.
So for that one, I thought it would be more on a timer. Hours of operation are enforced that way. So you can maintain weekend access from, well, I believe we mentioned maybe like 8 to 6 or 7 to 6, whatever it might be. Maybe seasonally dependent, when light is available. But that would really be effective with a secondary monitoring system.
Right. So that would
Cameras
be
of some sort.
It could be accessible during the weekend then.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I think if we were looking at safety issues, maybe looking at installing a gate as you get past the textile shed, past the turn for the public works yard. That would be the biggest issue. The only concern I have is if there is an emergency or anything like that with the water system. WSSC needs to maintain access for maintenance purposes down that road, but we can solve those issues with logistics. That's, making sure they have codes, whatever they need.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
But so then, if we thought of a secondary gate, that presumably could be a cheaper gate that doesn't have the automated access, but just something that is has a
The ability to
the
move.
ability to be the ability to open, and so
Yeah.
because I think aside from that access, and then our city staff, there's not really anybody else who should be driving that way.
No.
So unlike the accessing the recycling area where we want to make it open to residents at certain times, there's really should not be anybody. I guess maybe for Labor Day festival and the concert band bringing their instruments down there. Right? Yeah. So, but very limited besides city staff and maybe emergency.
And I've seen like DNR police go down there when they go to check fishing license, but they can just as easily park in the parking lot.
Right. Okay, and you'll research this notion about the demoing of the current oil recycling container and rebuild, pouring the concrete and installing the new Just we would need to know how long that would take and what the cost. A more precise estimate of the cost would be helpful. Yeah, Mr. Roberts.
I was just wondering for a comparison, how much are we spending per year on the mulch pile down there to have it mulched and, whatever we got to do, send the thing down there
Each
to
time
turn
the
it
tub
and
grinder
whatnot?
comes, it's $15,000.
How much?
15.
15. How many times a year are you doing it?
Usually it's about twice a year.
Twice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're spending 30,000 a year on the tub grinder, and then how much personnel I see them down there.
Yeah, personal
They turn
hours.
it and
You
stuff.
have the
They
loader
got the
operator
big
goes up there to
machine,
turn. Yeah.
So how much is that up to? Any
Off the top of
idea?
my head, for what they're just doing for operations, I wouldn't want to give you a number without knowing exactly.
Kind of sounds to me that we're spending just as much on that as we are on the recycling center at the lake. Getting rid of the toxics and everything. So it's about even. So yeah.
Yep.
So I don't see that as being troubling, because I think that the stuff we have at the lake is very, very important to recycle.
Let's go ahead, if there are no additional comments from council, let's go ahead and move to talk about the Northway field access. So, yes, we are, but I was going to do Northway field first. So we've been talking a little bit about the mobile camera, and we've received it, but there's some logistical. It hasn't really. Is it in operation now?
Not yet. With the contractor was having scheduling difficulties to get the training put together. I believe that should be happening within the next month, and then we can start using it.
When you prototype something like this, how long would you consider it a beta, or how long would you be testing it out before just we get a system that works? So you install it, you get the training, and you get it for 60 days or 90 days and see what happens. So what Mr. Summerall?
I think it depends on the site. For something like at the recycling center at Buddy Attic, because it has so much activity and so much turnover, you can see the impact much faster than a Northway dumping. And the type of dumping activities happening at two locations are completely different. We have contractors that are dumping truckloads of things at a time versus the 5-gallon oil cans or tires. So I would have to get with the team with what we're looking to measure at the Northway field. We probably would want to have that be up for an more extended period of time versus a surveillance at Buddy Attic.
Yeah, and I want to drill down on that if I could just for a second. So the camera, in this case, it's a license plate reader. So it's not really a video where you're videotaping residents walking around or taking pictures of people. It's as cars go in, the license plate reader would pick up the license plate.
Yes, the trailer system that we have is capable of doing both video surveillance and license plate reading. And it does it at a 360-degree.
So we could just set it for license plates, theoretically. And I don't know, in discussing this in general, cameras with the chief, the retention rate, we could actually limit the retention from 30 days. If we're just kind of monitoring, counting the number of cars coming out, monitoring to see if there's any illegal dumping going on. There's no particular retention rate that would be necessary. We could just keep that information on license plates for a week or a month.
My preference is to keep data for as little time as possible.
That's what I was driving
Right.
at.
In this use case, we're looking for dumping situation. So the sites are monitored with some frequency, daily frequency. So we should be able to tell if dumping activities happen right away, and we will retrieve that information. After retrieving that information, we would have no use for any of the other data because it's just not relevant for the purposes of deploying the technology. So my approach would be that we are keeping data for as little as possible. However, we're with the license plate reading technology, we're adopting the state's data retention policy. So it's not data that we ourselves are going to collect. It's going to be part of this IT infrastructure that's managed by the state, and we'll follow those state policies. So our team will not have direct control of that data.
But we would be able to go back and look if a dumping situation had occurred. We'd be able to go back. We'd know that it happened on Saturday or Sunday. We'd know that it probably happened between, 8 o'clock and 7 in the morning. And so we'd be able to narrow it down. And hopefully there wouldn't be that many cars or trucks going in and out of
Right.
Northway Field between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. So it wouldn't be that hard to really narrow it down.
Right, and in that example that you gave, we would have an investigative purposes for reviewing the data, and given the technology in the system, we would have motion detection, so it would tell us when an activity happened. So it's only recording data movement that's happening in the periphery of viewing.
That would be a civilian, or would have to be a police officer?
Well, we would have to send the request based on what I know of how the protocol works is when we have an incident happen, we're submitting a request to review data for a particular time frame, as you stated it. There are some automated procedures in the system. I wouldn't call it AI, but from what I understand, the data retrieval process that we would submit a request to retrieve data for a period of time and what kind of activity we're looking for. In the case use of the Northway, we're going to have so little vehicle traffic that we're not looking at a whole lot of data. It's not like we're looking for a particular make and model going down Greenbelt Road.
And just drilling down just a little bit more, that piece of equipment, the trailer with the license plate camera thing that's in, and several council members got a look at that. Staff has seen it. It's kind of ugly. So it'd be a deterrent. People would notice that there's something. You put a big sign on it, do not dump.
Right.
But all kidding aside, I think just visually having that back in the vicinity of a fence or just in general on the road would be a deterrent.
Correct. And there are other things that I would like to see the system do, which is the lighting of the system. I will want the lighting to be dim. And when there's a motion detected, particularly of a vehicle, that there's a spotlight that turns on. Now, I want to be mindful of wildlife, that we're not scaring wildlife. So we have to figure out what's the best way of doing it. But that is another deterrent in itself, is having a motion sensor lighting that kicks in, then alerts the motorist that, hey, there's something here right.
I think that would be pretty effective as a deterrent, aside from the idea of a gate. But we do have we actually physically, the gate has been built. There's a gate. It's over there in
You have a
Public
gate
Works.
available to install. Yeah.
Right.
I would say we have a fancy gate that's been handcrafted by our team.
Yeah, it was really nice. I don't know. I don't know if anyone has engraved it with a name and a date so that we can archival purposes. But with the gate, the idea would be to limit access. But I'm wondering, does the gate, once again, this idea of deterrence. You've got this camera system with a light that lights up when somebody passes. So we can have a gate. Does the gate actually have to be locked in order to deter people from going back? In combination with the light and the camera, maybe just having a gate there is enough to deter people.
Are you suggesting like a dummy lock system where it just looks like it's locked?
Yeah, because one of the concerns is just access, and I worry that maybe there would be a day when something happens and public works employees are dealing with some emergency somewhere else, and maybe somehow nobody gets back there to open or close the gate. But the proposal, there's a cost to an automated gate, but we're not talking about automated gates. So we're just talking a big old yellow, well-designed,
Swing
beautiful
gate.
swing gate. Yeah.
Very worried. Well, if that happens, like once in
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that's
when is that?
likely to
How many
happen
times
that
do you
often.
think that's going to happen?
We will
like
try to
nobody's
prepare for any
available to come.
contingency. Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking, well, just as an example,
I'm sorry, I
on
just
Research
thought it was
Road, there's a
like,
gate, and that has been problematic for from time to time with folks from BARC remembering to open it up or accidentally having. And just recently, there was a couple of days when it was locked.
I don't think that was accidental. I think that was because they were doing some road work.
Not too distant past, there was an issue with that, and it has been accidental from time. I'm just bringing it up.
I think what you're getting at is that it's another form of deterrent, right? If something looks like it's locked, folks might see it as locked, they might just move on. Right. Not want to tamper with it.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why parking enforcement is so successful. People fear getting a ticket. In the streets aren't surveillance the full time that parking enforcement, with the exception of Washington D.C.
Well, and I mean, even
But-
if it's there and it's closed and not locked, like the person would have to stop, get out of their
Open
vehicle,
the gate.
swing it open, which
While,
is,
while the floodlight is on.
Right.
so, I mean, that could be a deterrent too, in itself.
Hey, Mr. Roberts.
So where would the camera be? Will it be at the gate at Northway, or where would it be?
So that the camera location, we'd try to move it between the milling site and the compost site for the Northfield or Northway.
Okay.
So this map, I think, is the place that would allow us to capture the north area, which is right here at the center. You can go catch vehicles going down to the north part and vehicles going
So,
But what time of day are people dumping now? Aren't they like dumping at night and early in the morning when the gate would be closed?
Anecdotally, the information we've heard from some neighbors is that happening early mornings and late evenings.
So in other words, the gate would still be closed though
Right.
at that time.
Mhm.
So I don't really see the point in putting a camera down at the bottom of Northway when a gate is closed. People are not going to be going down in the middle of the night or anything else. I mean, you have to. Yeah, I mean, what sense is that? That doesn't mean anything to me.
And that's a fair statement. And if you recall, we had looked at doing the trailer as a separate intervention strategy versus doing a permanent.
But
installation.
if you're not going to lock the gate, I'll tell you, they're going to get out and open the gate and drive down.
Unless they
People
drive
that
by a
really want
camera
to,
that
people that
says-
really want to dump, that's what they'll do. I mean,
driving by a
I hate to
camera, and it's
tell you.
obvious that the camera's lighting up and recording that you're driving your truck down there, and
All
you
the,
don't know whether there's video or what it is. That might be a little bit of a deterrent. People.
So I think just locking it up at night is gonna put a big dent in it, because I think, and I've talked to the one guy on Northway that told me, when they would come, and he would call the police, and the police wouldn't come to enforce it, and the people would just go down, dump, and they'd be gone. Time police came a few hours later, they're gone. So they wouldn't take him seriously at the time. So now we're stuck with this. But yeah, I think the gate is the best thing. I don't see any sense in having a camera. I could see having maybe the camera at the gate, but not down there unless they're dumping during the day or something. But I don't think a lot of that happens. Doesn't seem to me, but
Okay.
I don't know. Thank you.
And I think we're in agreement. That's why we like the mobile trailer system, because it's not a permanent installation. It's portable. We can try it out. I think what at the essence of an intervention strategy is to interrupt the behavior pattern of dumping.
Well, I think, put it this way, I think if you leave that camera at the bottom of Northway at nighttime, it's gonna get vandalized. That's all. They're gonna destroy, someone's gonna destroy it. Yeah, you can't leave it back there. It's not gonna, the camera's not gonna be safe, I don't think.
What if the camera was up at the top, closer to Ridge, but the gate was still down? Because people go down there to Star Watch, there are gatherings. I mean, there are just things that happen out there. Often, later in the evening or early in the morning. So I want to make sure that access can still be had. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, and I think that's related. So I think again, so this unfortunately wouldn't be an automated gate, but the idea would be daylight hours, presumably, is when most people are going to be accessing the trails, for example, or Northway Fields. So if we chose to, we could say the gate is open during daylight hours, even on the weekend, if we just assign somebody to go open and close it. Or you could have weekends, maybe if there's a code on it or something. And then in terms of, and so there was a question about what is considered from Jan W about what is considered nighttime. We could decide what the timing is, but a lot of parks are dawn to dusk, right? And presumably, well, I suppose some people may be night hiking, I suppose, although, yeah. But with the gate over at proposed location 2, people could still come along Northway and park along Northway and then go on the trails. If somebody, and for an observatory event, we could arrange to have the gate open even at night. And if somebody personally is going to Skywatch, they can also, the pedestrians can go around the gate.
And I do think there are logistical solutions where, permitting processes where, if you wanted to hold an event such as a night hike and you wanted to have access to the parking location, you put in a permit for that and you get the access code or whatever it might be.
So, there already is the system for registering for the compost pile. So that could be extended to give those people the code. I think, because those things we can also adjust, right? If it seems like it's not working and people are complaining about not having access when they don't have access, we can change when the gate is open or change the way we allow access.
The trails are also accessible from other places too, if you wanted to go on a night hike. I know when my kids' scout troops go on night hikes, they usually leave from Mowat. That's where they hike in when they do their night hikes. So I think a lot of scouts do that.
Well, let's. Amy, please.
Yeah, I wanted to really reinforce that the proposed site 2 is going to be, I envision it being an absolute nightmare. I absolutely agree with Councilmember Roberts that people are just going to dump there. Also, there's not a place to turn around. So you're going to get big dump trucks back there that are going to get stuck in the gutter. I don't think it is actually going to stop anything from happening. Whereas proposed site 2, I hear us going in a lot of circles about what ifs. And I think we need to focus a little bit, if you put the gate at the front, there are always going to be 1 or 2 people who are going to be impacted by changes that we decide to make, but making those decisions based on just those 1 or 2 people is going to prevent us from making any actionable change. So I just want us to all consider what the priorities really are in this space, which is keeping Northway Fields safe so that our mulch piles don't explode and we stop having to pay a bunch of money for people who are illegally dumping. Right now, there are no city-planned activities that take place in Northway. The fields are defunct. The trails are managed by the Forest Preserve Advisory Board. Is there anything else that I'm missing the city just manages the dump part? There aren't recreational activities.
The fields are used.
Fields are used, and there are other activities. Let's see. All right, let's take some public comment. Let's see. There's something from Jan. I don't know if you already referenced this. Jan.
No, that was her other comment.
Okay, Jan W. submitted a comment, and she says, "Further to Northway, Having that free mulch compost and sometimes wood chips available is a win for the community for a very long time. I think there will be quite a bit of protest from the community if you close it altogether. Also, consider that there are still ball fields back there. If you stop activity altogether, having a big empty lot would be really attractive to the pro maglev folks. There you go.
Maglev.
Maglev.
But I think we're not considering
Considering
closing it off at all hours. It's just potentially limiting the hours. And I guess, Amy, are you thinking that you think the proposed gate number, the location number 1 would be better?
Yes, by Ridge Road. Yeah, right at the main access point.
Yeah, I concur with that as well.
That's where you have
Same,
to have
yeah.
it. You can't
Instead
have
of
it
all the
halfway
way down. Mhm.
I think the point about not being a turnaround is a good one. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. If somebody gets down there,
You're stuck.
could be
Which if you're not
challenging.
supposed to
That's
be
an
there
interesting thought.
dumping, Then it's good, you're trapped.
If you're illegally dumping, if you drive all the way down there and you hit a gate, you're just going to legally dump in front of it and drive away because you're not really concerned with following the law, clearly. But they're much less likely to dump in front of that first gate because there's cars there, there are houses, there are pedestrians, so.
And that's also where the current gate is installed, right? Where the poles are installed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which can be moved or.
Is there additional public comment? Oh,
Well, there's
please.
one follow-up from Kathleen Legendre. She says, in order to receive accurate data, tag reader cameras would need to be in operation at all locations. It might have to rotate. I mean, we only have one, so we might have to rotate it to get data from all locations.
Yeah, I'm Tom Jones, a longtime Greenbelt resident. I'm here tonight representing the casual Greenbelt Ultimate Frisbee group. We've been playing the sport of Ultimate Frisbee Sunday afternoons at Northway Fields, occasionally other places when the rec department asked us to move, but year-round since 1993. We've been there for 30 years. Over the decades, I've been in periodic communication with the recreation department. We've gotten permits whenever they ask for them. We've been there a long time, and we publicize. We are open to everyone. At present, I think we may be the only group actively using the fields, although last summer, and I suspect this spring, the youth soccer will probably pick up and start using the other field that we're not using on Sundays. Several times over the years, we've seen what look like commercial vehicles who have come back there and started dumping during our games. When that's happened, I've usually called the Greenbelt the police non-emergency number. At least once, I recall the police showed up fairly rapidly and had what I'd call an extended discussion with the commercial truck, and they loaded everything that they had dumped back up onto their truck and departed. We would be happy because we're there several hours every time the weather's good and the fields are dry enough to play on. I would be very happy to continue coordinating with whoever might be best in order to continue reporting as appropriate. I have 2 requests. First, I want to note on the record that Greenbelt Ultimate Frisbee does use that field. It sounds like some people think that the fields are not in use. They're in terrible shape. I mean, we would very much like if those fields could be improved, or maybe we could be given a permit to play on a better field. We do like to play whenever it is at all possible for us to play. We don't want to trash the fields, but one of the reasons that we use the less desirable field is that when it's a little bit muddy, we can the field can recover between our weekly games, and so we can sometimes play there a little bit more because there's nobody coming on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday to play, for instance. We very much wish to continue playing on some field in Greenbelt. We're also probably going to be filing to be a recognition group because I understand that that's obtaining a permit is an official process that way now. Before we didn't need that, but we'll file for that paperwork and continue to do that. But second, if you can put me in touch with someone, I'll gladly talk with Dr. Robles or someone else for guidance that we can have for what types of behavior we should see and who we should contact in order to be some eyes and ears on Sunday afternoons out there. And keep an eye on things. But we would like to be considered as active users of the Northway fields. And I think many of you know how to get in touch with me. I will be happy to participate in discussions on figuring out how we can continue to be regular users of those fields. Thanks.
Yeah, very good. Member Pro Tem?
Yeah, just but before you sit down, so what is your thoughts if we had a gate that either was open during daylight hours on the weekend, or that somebody from your group had a code to be able to open the gate and then close it afterwards? Would you find that satisfactory in terms of in terms of maintaining your access to Northway Fields?
That sounds like it would be fine. The one issue is that sometimes we like to play until it's kind of getting dark, but until just a little bit beyond what you'd call dusk. I mean, we can't play when it's really dark. So we would prefer to not have like a really rigid definition of like, well, the sun set 20 minutes ago. It's dark now. But as long as we can leave, we would be happy to do that.
Scrapped forever.
Okay, hey, thank you. Jay Davis.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. I'll get to that part later. Just as a reminder, believe it or not, there is a proposed master plan for this Northway Fields that's been sitting on a shelf for probably about 20 years. I don't know if that's it. That's something different. I have it in my budget book, so I know that I think it was Kelly Ivy who used to come on a regular basis saying, we have all these fields area that could possibly be made for sports, and we haven't done anything with them. And there was a plan set up and everything, and it just sits there. So whatever you plan to do, it should be as minimal as possible, because at some point you will redo that Northway Field area to whatever specs you want, and you don't want to have to undo something that you've already put in, and it's going to cost a lot of money. The gate up at the top makes much better sense. If you do put a camera in, you could put it up there, but more likely than not down by the Millions area, especially during the daytime. You would like to kind of see who's coming in during the day when the gate's open. And it's interesting that the Frisbee people actually called the police. I think that's to be commended. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Coach K.
Good evening. Coach K from West Greenbelt, Franklin Park. I'm going to talk about Northway. I guess from what I'm hearing, I don't think any of y'all know that the Greenbelt Boys and Girls Club has been regulated to that field because we have nowhere to practice, because we can't practice at Braden Field. So we use that field at Northway, and it's terrible. We use our car lights when it gets dark to light up the field so we can practice. The field, like this gentleman says, the ground, everything is terrible. And it's a shame that we have to have our kids go down that long road and go down there and play on that field and practice when we got other fields that we could use. And they don't take care of that field. There's nobody that goes down there, and if they do mow the grasses once a month, I don't see it being done on a regular basis. And the Greenbelt Boys and Girls Club uses that field Monday through Friday from 6 to 8. That's when we use it. And that's during the football, flag football and regular football season. So I was concerned about what's down there. Is there anything down there that is harmful to us? But it seems like everything there is fine, but except the field. So what I'm saying is it would be nice if it would be fixed up or made a little more attractive than it is. Put some lights down there. If we are regulated to have to use that field, then it should be fixed up a little bit. Thank you.
Hey, let me ask you a question. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I could make a suggestion, somebody from the Boys and Girls Club should be working on their the contribution group application, because with the budget process, one of the ways that we're able to figure out
Okay.
proper maintenance would be to know that, a group is down there at a particular time. So just make sure, who is working on that the application for?
Tanya Thomas is the president.
Okay.
I think they were due in February, though.
But still, if you could, if it just,
I can
if,
talk
you-
to her
if
and
you'll
find
talk to
out.
him and make sure, even though, just make sure that it's been done, or if it hasn't, just make sure that it gets in as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's see, where are we at? So let me say this. So we were talking about the camera platform. We've got a gate that's already been fabricated. Consensus from council mostly is to put the gate up top near ridge. So I'm just wondering if we can, as I sort of started off, kind of phase this in, test out get trained and test out the camera system and see how that works out before we move ahead and pull the trigger on this. What do you think, Mayor Pro Tem?
I think the other thing that we need to do before is make sure that we have a documented plan about access that we can communicate to the residents. And if that's that, and even if that's just that this is what we're going to try first, if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. But I think having that spelled out very clearly and succinctly and put that out there, and perhaps put that out there. I mean, there may be other stakeholder groups that we're not aware of that use that space. I know there were some kite flying events there as well that were the space. Which again, I think these things can be solved and we can figure out who is. But I think that's something we really need to have, and we need to do that and communicate that to residents before we put a gate in. And then also probably have some signage there that also gives, at the very least, a QR code to a website that has more information that says, is the gate locked? Find out the rules for getting access. And here's a QR code to go to the website and find that. But I think, and I do agree that testing out the camera there might be a good thing to do, and working with the Frisbee folks to keep an eye on it and know who to talk to. But I don't want us to put a gate in before we have very clearly spelled out what the hours are going to start out at least, how we're going to deal with special events, and clearly, broadly advertise that to people.
Yeah, and I would agree with that to mostly, just in a general sense. I think we don't want to fix a problem that we don't have. So the idea, if we put a fence here, are we going to put fences up around the entryway to all the access points, the Buddy Attic Park? Are we going to put a fence around Schramm Hills Park? I don't think that's the Greenbelt way. I think we want to be perceived, as being our facilities, particularly our parks or park and green infrastructure, as being accessible to people. So in this case, this is something we really do need to approach to deal with the dumping. But in a more general sense, even with the license plate readers and cameras and gates, we want to, if we have to do it, we want to do it in the least impactful way as possible. So I'm very sensitive to that.
And we're in agreement. Putting up one more gate is one more asset that we have to manage, repair, maintain, and all those things.
Who's gonna open it? I guess if it's a code, that's one thing. Or we're gonna ask the rangers to ride their bikes over.
Right, and that'll be part of the planning that we will put together. Who's going to open it? Who's going to close? What will be procedures for accessing after hours? Ideally, it will be a permitted event. But what do you do in cases where there's a pickup game? Yeah.
As we just heard from Coach K and from Mr. Jones, sometimes an activity goes a little bit longer. So if the park closes at 8, but the event goes, the informal activity or the permitted activity by a contribution group goes until 8:30. We would like to have, I would like to have some flexibility somehow to the extent that we can do that.
Right, and more importantly, that the spaces are actually being used. As bad conditions as they are, they're being used and appreciated for what they are.
See, we have a comment from Mr. Orleans. But Coach K, if you could please, just double check on that because that's coming up pretty soon. We want to make sure that we got that information in place. It's very important.
Bill Orleans resident. The Northway Fields, of course, is the site of what I presume was Greenbelt's original dump, which was a working dump for the first 30 years or so of the town's existence. I think it was still open when I left in '63. I don't know when it was closed, it having reached full capacity. That certainly wouldn't be, 60 years later, wouldn't be responsible for the hardness of the field itself. But I have read different times about the effects of landfills, health effects of landfills, even way after their closure as landfills. And I'm just curious, has Greenbelt ever had a health assessment done of the air emanating above those fields? Is it even a safe place for kids to play? I don't know. But I'm curious, have we ever had an assessment done of those fields?
Jay, do you know?
So the question is Northway Field, is it a park or is it a brownfield?
So Jay says no, not as far as she knows from the audience.
As far as I know, as far back 30 years now, it hasn't.
Yeah, and Mr. Roberts.
Well, it's not the original Greenbelt dump. The original Greenbelt dump is in Greenbelt Park. The large grassy area when you drive into the park, that was the original Greenbelt dump. But then when they stopped using that, they went to Northway. And Northway was open until the middle 70s or so, maybe 76, 77, around that time. That's when they really started closing it down. So there's a lot of, right beneath the fields out there was a huge, huge hole where they were dumping trash, and then they dumped other stuff, cars and all kind of stuff around on the edges into the woods and stuff like that. So, yeah, so a lot of stuff out there, but that's why the fields are a problem because it's still settling, with all the trash and stuff in there. But, right now it's supposed to be a recreation facility, not a dumping ground. This is why over the years I've been, steadfastly against putting asphalt millings and dirt piles and all that kind of stuff because it's taking away from what it's supposed to be. And we're not maintaining the fields like we used to. Mr. Ivy used to come out every year and tell us, that the baseball fields are oriented in the wrong direction because at the times they want to play, they get the sunlight right in their eyes. So he always wanted us to switch the fields around so that they were usable. And unfortunately, it didn't happen in his lifetime, but I hope it's going to happen. We need to fix that place because there are people that need fields to play on, and we need to keep them good fields to play on. We're spending gobs of money down on Graydon Field and nothing at Northway and nothing in Greenbelt West. We don't have one field in Greenbelt West. So, yeah, there you are.
Let's see. Hey, wasn't there another dump down there on Kenilworth, south of Westchester Park?
What's that?
Was there another dump that may have been used by Greenbelt down off Kenilworth?
No, that's where the state of Maryland dumped. The state of Maryland dumped a bunch of dirt down there. They made a huge dirt mountain there.
It's a big mountain down
and
there.
And it caused a lot of erosion into the park. It was a big issue for quite a while.
Oh,
but it wasn't trash. It was dirt that they dumped in there.
Well, let's move on to talk about Greenbelt East. The proposal off of, I guess that's Hanover Drive and Greenway Center Drive. Although Greenway Center Drive, I always wonder, Greenway Center Drive, that's sort of a private road. That's not something that we maintain, although it just seems like at some point it's going to become a more formalized road. I mean, the medical building is there and Martin's Crosswind and Holiday Inn, but where it says Greenway Center Drive, that's not a city road. It's not really. But Hanover Drive, though, I guess that's what that is. Hanover Drive, that is a city maintained drive. So, do you want to, let's see, there it is up there on the screen. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so containing this area is, you're looking at more of a chain link fence to limit access to people that want to come in and misuse those services. Total cost for this project for just the fencing is I've estimated to be about the $35,000 to $40,000 range for 95 feet, 65 feet, give or take, for the fencing around it. There's an existing fence on that south side coming from the dog park, and then it backs up to one of the forest preserve tracks. So there's no access from that side.
So the proposal would be to this fence area, that the automated gate that comes down and the fence that would it actually extend to the dog park fence?
The dog park fence actually terminates before then, and then we have a makeshift fence that continues along, but it goes down into a ravine, so getting around it would be difficult.
So as far as, and this is the sunrise tract of the
Track, yeah.
So if you had some reason for getting back into the sunrise track, you'd have to go back around closer to the Holiday Inn to access. There's not a formal trail, but
there are no formal trail systems in the sunrise track, and access from even that point at the recycling center is very difficult.
Because there's sort of like a ravine or a hill,
Stream, and it's been cut out pretty hard. Yeah.
Right. There's no leaching from this area into the stream because it's sort of is
Curbing on either side. Yeah.
Please proceed.
So yeah, looking at an automated gate there, as I mentioned before, that would be a pretty important aspect because of the fact that we do have contractors come and making sure that there is a reliable time that they can come, and we can maintain hours of operation that way.
I always thought that if the area was just a little more formalized, that would be helpful. Basically, if you are driving or if you're on foot or on a bike, and it just looks like a series of dumpsters. Now, I noticed that some new signs have been put up in the area, and I think that's helpful. Have you seen any changes in the patterns of what's being left back by the textile shed? Because occasionally, there'll be a mattress back there or some furniture.
That's fairly regular.
TV monitors.
Yeah,
things
couches, all kinds of things. Yeah.
And the textile shed. So, if you could remind me, who is responsible? The textile sheds are not Greenbelt's.
No, that is another contractor that we've partnered with. It's Turnkey Enterprises. Yeah, and they come out and they have a regular pickup schedule for that as well. But there are certain items, and those get people want to make sure that these things are getting reused, but they only take certain items. So a lot of the times they end up having to throw away some of the things that are in there.
Is Turnkey Enterprises a special kind of a vendor, or in terms of what they do with the materials, or do we contract with them, or do they?
They recycle them and make them available for secondhand market.
So they're like a nonprofit, or they're sort of like a.
Yeah, I believe they are a nonprofit. Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah. So it sounds like, so the biggest issue at this site, is it the furniture and mattresses, or is it contamination in the recycling bins? I mean, what's the biggest concern at this site?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, contamination into the recycling bins is a big concern. I mean, I've taken, kitty litter, all kinds of things out of there. But that is one of the reasons why we did put in the trash service. So if you were going to be, putting things that needed to be disposed of through refuse, that option was available since it seemed to be so prevalent, but it did get kind of confusing.
And I mean, for this one, you've got the fence along two sides to completely enclose it, and I guess maybe it doesn't matter so much because it's the gate that's so expensive compared to the fence. But I guess what I was thinking was, would just putting the gate across, at least that would prevent vehicle access in there. I wonder if that would be enough to prevent some of the biggest issues of people bringing mattresses and furniture and big things. But now that I think about it, the fence is not really the expensive part. So it's the gate is most of it anyway.
I'll say it again. It's just, to the untrained eye, it kind of used to look like just a series of dumpsters. So, people think, oh, there are dumpsters here. I'm gonna throw my old office chair over here or whatever. So I'm glad that there are more signage there, and that's sort of the distinction between this and over at Buddy Attic. Buddy Attic clearly looks like it's a recycling location. It doesn't look like it's a dump because there are no dumpsters there.
Well, there's dumpsters there.
dumpsters. I
Well,
saw
there
it,
are,
yeah.
we have, I think it's 10. Yeah.
Probably get a lot of pollution in those dumpsters because just people not. It's not just cardboard. People just put stuff.
It's all single stream now. So there are more acceptable items, and same with at this site as well. But yeah, people still sometimes see a dumpster and we'll put, like I said, car parts, all kinds of weird things in there.
See, I can go to Mayor Pro Tem with no other council members.
Yeah,
to
just
speak.
a follow-up thought. So with the idea on this one with the automated gate would be again to have it open during, say, business hours, and then
include weekend
and then over the
access,
weekend,
yeah.
but not so trying to prevent things at early morning or overnight hours. So, but there would not be any particular access controls. So we're not talking about any sort of system for registration or anything like that. It would simply be hours of operation.
Yeah.
And I think there was also there was a proposal for a camera potentially here as well. That was part of that. That was one of the older.
The older quotes we had, which was, again, I believe that was quoted at the time in the $10,000 range. So at 30%, it ends up being the $12,000 to $13,000 range. It's a solar powered system.
What do we incur extra costs at this site? Is it similar? Is it mostly staff time cleaning things up? What do we do if there's a mattress?
That's staff time. A lot of
Okay.
staff time gets spent at that site. Some of the most of the staff time that we incur is at that site because it's often used inappropriately.
It's off the beaten path too.
Yeah, it's kind of a known site for if you have something you need to get rid of, you throw it there.
So I guess then the other question is that for somebody, I mean, I think, well, we'd have to see if that would make a difference because I can see somebody if we don't have the cameras and the ability to cite people, I can see somebody who has a mattress. And I mean, there's not a lot of stuff right near there. Like if someone has a mattress and they need to figure out what to do with it, they might just do it during the day or on the weekends. So I don't know. Mattresses are challenging. Like, what do you, yeah. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, and to the point that's been brought up by Mr. Orleans, sometimes, to some extent, because the homeowners associations and condo associations are not always as transparent about how to dispose of bulk items, I suspect occasionally people from the Hanover apartments, which are not in Greenbelt at all, may just see the dumpsters and dump there as opposed to calling up the HOA or condo association office, agreeing to pay a certain amount and then taking something by a certain time. It's complicated, and people sometimes are just looking for the easiest solution. So remember.
And just to clarify one more time for me, because there's not going to be controlled access, why would you need an automated gate versus just a regular gate?
Because of the contractors, we need to ensure that they do have access at appropriate times.
Okay. Well, let's go to some public comment. Jay Davis.
Jay Davis, Greenbelt East. This was the item that I particularly came for tonight because I understand about the oil situation. I could see why that's a priority. But as far as I'm concerned, this is number 2. This particular recycling center has failed right from the very beginning because it's on an off street and people just use it to dump. It has always been used as an area to dump. And the worst mistake you made was allowing people to dump on one side of the dumpsters and think that people weren't going to dump on the other side of the dumpsters. They dump on all the dumpsters. So probably what the recycling company does, they simply take that dumpster, whatever's in it, and they go straight to the landfill. They're not recycling any of it because I have found dishwasher parts, car parts, anything, And every single particular, in fact, I don't use this area anymore. I go to Buddy Attic because there I know that it's going to be fairly supervised. I rarely find anything bad in the dumpsters. Here, I've sent photos. People take their grass clippings, their tree branches, everything goes in there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a dead cat in there at some point. It is a mess. So fencing it, I think, is necessary. I think you desperately need a camera, not a temporary one, a permanent one, because if you don't do the permanent camera and the fencing, then you might as well not have that center there at all. I know that we put the recycling center here because we wanted to have services in all parts of the city. And I voted for that. I wanted it to happen there, but it is an eyesore. It is not being used properly. People are not doing proper things there. I've caught people, just doing. I've called the police and have actually taken photos of people doing improper things there. I do have recycling with Greenbrier, but I don't use the recycling there that they have because everybody does the very same thing. They dump everything in the recycling bins. Nobody checks. So I'd rather put my recycling where it's actually going to be recycled. And so that's why I go to Buddy Attic now, because I think it's there. So please put in the fencing. And along the other two sides, you have sort of like screening, and it's not kept up. The screening is to keep the litter from blowing into the forest preserve. So that's got to be maintained too. So either you put all your effort and do everything what you need to do here, or remove it because it's not doing any good whatsoever.
Thank you. It seems like you have some strong feelings about this, Jay Davis.
I've had strong feelings.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course you did.
All the time, yeah.
So, yeah, you know what? I live in Greenbelt East. I do take textiles to the textile shed. I do use the recycling in my building. And in looking, it's, the recycling stream is pretty clean in my building. It really varies. But as I said before, sometimes with the bulk trash thing, with the condominium associations and the townhouses and the apartments right there that are outside of Greenbelt, it's just, it's hard to figure out how to dispose of your bulk items. You have to call the office, and you'd have to arrange for someone to pick up, and Jay Davis knows this. You're supposed to call, you're supposed to arrange for a time when someone comes to your trash room to pick up the recycling. You're supposed to pay, and realistically, I don't think very many people actually do that. So, yeah, please go ahead.
Would council be interested in having some sort of bulk drop location, like a spring cleanup type of event where we have dumpsters put up in a place where people can just dump bulk items?
Yeah, I think that would actually be utilized by a lot of residents. It's not unlike the shredding event.
Right.
Or, well, I guess it depends. Maybe this would be too complicated. I was going to say combining that with the quarterly events. I do think some people would have trouble. I think some people dump things out someplace where they don't have to, where things that don't fit in their car or things like that. I think in our neighborhood there was a freezer recently that was dumped off, although it was actually surprisingly far from the road from the pictures that I saw. But yeah, I don't know if that's something that could be a regular thing and give people more of a consistent place to take those bulk items. Although I do think some people it is a little bit of an inconvenience to call and to someone to pick up, but then at least if you've called to have them pick up, you just have to put it out at your curb. You don't have to take it somewhere.
Yeah, Mr. Samaron, I think that's a good idea. I think we should, explore the feasibility of trying that out.
Cost factor too.
Oh, absolutely.
Figure out what that would be.
The cost we would have would be a dumpster fee just to drop off the dumpster, and then the hauling fee and the tipping fee associated with it. Well, things that are fairly easy to estimate. And We can probably roll in the cost of the tipping fee with all of our other stuff. So we would have to be somewhat strategic about how many dumpsters we would have and what kind of number of pickups we would do. But just something, if it's a frustration, I care about solutions, right? It may be that this place has become the dumping ground because there's a need in the community and there's nowhere for people to take their stuff. Maybe the apartments or the condo folks just don't make it easy enough for folks to dump stuff, and they go out of the way to dump it here. Because
I
it's
would
the
also
easiest.
argue that this site is known outside of Greenbelt as a place to dump things as well.
There's a lot of commercial endeavors there. And so, Ms. Pope, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I know that some HOAs, like mine, I could call our trash service if I would have some bulky items and make the arrangements. So it's very easy. And I know Charlestown Village, we do a quarterly dumpster, and the management company, we pay for it, and then we put it in. But also in those, you cannot put everything in it. There's also restrictions to that. What can go in those dumpsters? So.
And in the different communities are having different level of services, right? And the central Greenbelt, just put your stuff out there.
Yeah, because we
pick it up.
that's what we're trying to prevent. People putting it on when trash day comes, you find all kinds of things. So it works, but in a smaller concept.
Okay, but as far as this proposal for Greenbelt East, from what I hear, the idea of the fencing and the automated gate seem like a solution that the fencing or just cordoning off or limiting access to the area, you should do that. My additional thought is somehow we just need to make it look like more of a formalized area. It's looking better. There's more signage. All the dumpsters are the same color, pretty much. Maybe there should be a big
that's the
sign or something
problem.
that says recycling
So
area.
part of the-
Big signs.
And a camera. Is that a camera?
Possibly a camera. Let's see, Mr. Robertson, Mayor Pro Tem.
Appropriate activities going on over there.
Right.
If you have to do a fence out there, can you at least do something that will look halfway decent? Like out on Edmondson Road, there's a big roofing company out there. They just put up a new fence, and it looks like vegetation. It looks much better than a regular fence. So maybe do something like that to look at.
Probably increase the price, but
It would
options.
increase the price, but at least you wouldn't see all the dumpsters there and everything. It would be, it would look a little better. Because it doesn't look good with dumpsters everywhere, and no matter what we do, they're still going to come down and throw the stuff on the ground. They're not going to throw it in the dumpster. They're going to throw it on the ground like they always do, whether there's a fence or not. So I hate to say it, but.
And if it's a known site for folks outside of Greenbelt, that problem isn't going away. If it's a known dumping site for folks outside of Greenbelt, no matter what level of improvement we do, we're going to attract that.
Well, the
kind of
thing
activity.
is people are dumping everywhere right now. The contractors, you go drive down through Bark, there's huge piles all over Bark. They're just throwing it everywhere. And that's the problem.
So you're saying like a chain link fence with English ivy?
Yeah, or something that at least hides the fence, hides the crap. Doesn't gotta be English ivy. I don't care what kind of ivy it is. You can make some legal ivy.
So this wasn't going to be my comment, but actually when Stephanie Warner showed us fedges, which is when you take willow and basically you just harvest the willow stalks and you plant them and it roots, and then as it grows you can weave it together, and now it takes a couple of years, but that's free. It just takes time. And it is actually, it doesn't just look like vegetation, it is actually vegetation. So, and it's, it's
the
a
ecosystem and the environment, yeah.
But that is, and I think the one thing that she emphasized was that it can't be somewhere like the willow really loves to grow towards water. So if there's any underground like water water pipes. You can't do that because it'll grow into dams. Okay, so I guess the fedges are not an option. But my actual question was, so I think we have at least rough estimates for costs for all of them. So Buddy Attic, the recycling center, the fence with the automated gate would be 25,000, and then the oil recycling would be about 9,500. North Hanover Parkway, we said 35 to 40,000. Is there really? I mean, we already have the gate for Northway. If we were going to do that, would there be any costs at all with that for the electronic access or anything?
So for that one, I mean, we're talking about probably more rudimentary access with like a
Some kind of
keypad lock. Yeah.
so minimal
Yeah.
other. Okay. So I think if I calculated everything correctly, it looks like about $75,000 for all for if we were to do all four of these.
Right.
Give or take, and that's not including any of the cameras, the fixed cameras that were also part of the packet. But I just wanted to kind of think of that so we've got all these little pieces going around. I think the cameras totaled to a good bit more. I mean, that almost. I didn't total up the cameras. I didn't total up the cameras, but it's probably not quite as much.
Those
Yeah,
estimates.
just
So, Councilmember McKinney.
I was just going to make a request for when this does come to an actual work or regular council meeting for us to vote on it, if you could sort of calculate those costs and then maybe show it by priority.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have to talk to the rest of Public Works, what's the highest priority and what's that cost? So if we're having to make a decision on the full cost of 75,000, or if we're actually making, or if we can make decisions on prioritized list of that, just so that we have some options.
Yeah.
as well as how much we could save on if it can be broken down in any way in terms of what are the costs we are incurring at each individual site, so we can do that comparison of it's going to cost this and cost benefit analysis as much as possible. I know it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry to
So,
interrupt,
and-
but I just wanted to add
so-
that.
Short term, we've got the camera trailer. You guys are going to get trained and prototype it over at Northway Field with Buddy Attic. Just going to research the time frame and logistics of replacing the 500 the oil recycling container. So that's midterm. I think just since it's going to take a little while before we move forward with this, not too long, it would be nice just to kind of refer this all over to PRAB just to see if they have anything to say about any of these ideas. But I think we've had a pretty good discussion. I think we've really given some pretty good direction to Kevin and to Mr. Samaron. Any additional discussion on this topic? And I'm sorry, Mr. Roberts and Councilmember Pomper.
To me, the automated gate is not worth the money you're going to pay for it. It's just their trouble. They break down, and you got to keep on fixing it. I just went out to a job about a month ago that had a gate like that, and they gave me the code to get in, and there was no one else there. I went on the weekend, but on my way out, I pushed the code in. It didn't work. So I had to go over and pull the emergency thing on the little chain thing that operates the gate and push it open by hand. And I went back about a few weeks later, and it was still broke down. So I guess I don't know, either they're just going to do it by hand or take some time to get people to fix it or whatever. And I've seen that a lot. You're better off just have a gate with a chain and a lock, and give whoever the contractors are, give them a key. That's all. That's save us $25,000. And not only that, you're saving all the future maintenance that you're going to have to do on that gate. So that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
To Ms. Davis's point and to Mr. Carpenter Driscoll's comments, my concern with this Greenbelt East site is that it's just not being used properly, and I'm wondering if adding a gate is actually going to make it used properly. I'm very skeptical that fencing it and gating it is going to make people use it properly, because I think, as Mr. Samaron said, is Mr. Carpenter Driscoll said, people are dumping there and they're just going to be like, oh, I guess I'll just dump it when the gates open then. Like, I hesitate. It's a lot of money to spend to solve a problem. And I don't think this is going to solve that problem of the, yeah. And of the recycling, it's being used inappropriately. That seems pretty clear. Like people aren't recycling, using the recycling services appropriately. So I wonder if that's actually going to be a solution or, they'll just wait until it's open and then dump. So I just want to put that out there because it is a lot of money to spend for something that just might not work. And maybe Miss Davis is right, and this is just not the right site for these services.
Well, I think we can kind of hammer that out at a council meeting with some additional input to Mr. Roberts. I think the time to access is something that is pretty important to me because we, as Mr. Roberts said, we want to make sure that the recycling areas are accessible. Particularly Buddy Attic Lake. Maybe this would work in Greenbelt East, but just in terms of equity and access, we shouldn't have everything in Greenbelt Center in one location. So once again, I think we've had a good discussion, given pretty good direction with final logistics of whether to move forward. We should get a little input from PRAB and with some additional research on the logistics of relocating, demolishing and situating the 500-pound recycling oil container. Those are things that we can kind of look into with additional information that's been requested. I think we're in pretty good shape. I don't think this is going to come up on the agenda on the 26th. I wouldn't expect this to come up on the agenda until several months from now.
Yeah, it would be good to get an idea of how the mobile unit is working as well.
So maybe this is something that would come up in July.
At the earliest, we're talking about expenditures. Some of it is expenditures that we're closing our budget or closing the deficit. Get that wrapped up at the next week ahead of our presentation to council on the 25th. So if you were to ask me how are we going to fund $75,000 worth of fencing improvements in this budget, I'd say we can't. So from an expenditure perspective, I don't see a lot of these things happening right away. We need to work our budget. Maybe there's a project that comes off that will make room for these improvements.
Appreciate that. So, but we've set out sort of a plan and criteria for moving forward. We have to get the money. You have to get everybody to weigh in, a little more information. So
right now we know council's interest and how do you want to see this move forward. So as we see opportunities to fund these projects, we have some guidance on how to move forward.
Very good. Kevin, thank you so much for all
Thank
the
you.
good work. We're going to pivot to some information items and then wrap up.
Good to me.
Have one. Kevin, you want to break the good news?
Sure. We were just awarded a Chesapeake Bay Trust grant, working with Dr. May again to do a longitudinal study experiment looking at red oak decline mitigation, trying to do some soil applications to lower the pH to their more natural setting to see how that affects the decline that we're seeing, especially through bacterial leaf scorch in our red oaks. So that's a $300,000 grant that we're going to see fund for a few years of this study, working with GHI, working with University of Maryland Environmental Science Department. So we're very excited for that.
That is exciting. Yeah, congratulations. Hey, you said something about modifying the pH level. Is that from acid rain, the pH level of the soil, and that has had an effect, particularly on the red oak species? Is that
So
it?
the red oaks, they actually like more acidic soil. And so when you have them in turf grass settings, they end up being more neutral. So to add a little bit more acidity should help make them more robust, more readily take up the nutrients that they need as well.
So you wouldn't add lime? What would you add to the soil?
It was off the top of my head, I can't remember what it was exactly. We wrote that number of months ago, but it is a substance. It wasn't lime though.
Okay, okay. And you helped or you wrote the part of the grant?
Yeah, we're part of the grant with the help of Dr. May.
Oh, that's fantastic. Keep that pencil sharp.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's move on to information items. Congratulations on that. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, and I think actually Jenny and I were in the same session. I think I saw Jenny had sent an email, but there was just something that came up at NLC, and I think in some places they called it elective pay, some places they called it direct pay, but it's the same thing. Yeah, but so I think Jenny already sent a link to some things, but I got some handouts. So this is basically it's sort of letting cities act as they submit a tax return and get a tax refund for some energy credits. So and things. I mean, they've got things for energy property, carbon dioxide sequestration, various other energy from electricity from renewables, various things. But it seems kind of an interesting idea. It's not a traditional, grant from the federal government. It sounded like they were things that were, you just have to apply for, like it's a tax refund.
It's a tax credit.
Tax
so
credit,
you
yeah.
have to pay. You have to pay up front. So it would be, yeah. It's like, and it really works well if it's a program that you already have in place, right? If you're like, well, we're already planning to put solar on XYZ roof, then you end up getting this. You can get a rebate, and there are different types. Like some of them are one-time rebates, like for an EV, a clean EV, and some of them, like for the solar, like you spread the credit out over like 10 years because you're adding to the grid. Anyway, it seemed like, like it's complicated if you're not, I think if you're not like a tax person or a finance person, you're like, ugh. But to hear them talk about it, it's really not as hard as it seems. And they're like dying to give away this money. And whenever I hear that, like, we have this money, please take it, I'm like, we will take it. So anyway, again, it seems like it's not as much effort. It seems like it's relatively low effort to basically just get money back from doing things we're already doing.
And they mentioned specifically a $7,500 credit for EVs, as well as I think 30% on EV chargers. Yeah. And I did ask the person, I think she was from the IRS, or specifically, can that stack with, because I think when we bought EVs, we got some Maryland credits, and she thought it could, and it sounds like it could be retroactive.
Yeah, it's from anything that was purchased after December 12th or December 31st, 2022. So anything we bought last year, we could get.
Might be able to get some.
We should be able to get credits on. So,
yeah,
it's just a little bit of extra money in the bank is never a bad thing. So.
Right, we'll look into it, especially for the EV vehicles that we purchased.
Yeah, things we already
if
bought.
We can get, yeah.
Yeah, and we're planning on buying more. So, like I said, it's not upfront, but it's sort of good to know that we could be getting a little money back.
So this was one of many programs that were discussed during the federal agency roundtables yesterday, for the most part. And I've got a few. I think everybody who attended came away with a few things that the city can try out. So we'll have to try and find time to actually devote maybe half of a work session, just talking about coming back and sharing some of the opportunities that we discovered and things we talked about. I talked with HUD quite a bit about the 108 program and how it could be used to maybe fund acquiring property. And there's just a lot of opportunities that the NLC programs are so helpful. Yeah. Hey, I was going to talk about the calendar a little bit. And Miss Councilmember McKinney, just looking at the schedule, the budget sessions, the budget presentation is actually coming up on Monday, March the 25th. That's a week and a half from now. And it looks like there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many budget work sessions are we having?
Schedule, right?
Did everybody get a copy of the budget meeting schedule?
It was just emailed this morning.
Right. So there's a lot. So we don't have a lot of flexibility. There are a couple of work sessions somehow that I think it's important for us to squeeze in. Councilmember McKinney is anxious, as I am, to circle back and to continue our discussions about following up from our retreat, sort of crafting that into more of a council work plan. The economic development work session that had to be canceled, I'm very anxious to circle back to that. I think there's some things happening in our business community and that we just need to talk about and find out, just learn more about the activities that Kevin and you and the collectively we're engaged in, because this is a very sensitive time, just in terms of looking at retail and looking at what's happening in Beltway Plaza and Greenway Center. I think we need to, and also with our office space. So I'm anxious to try and circle back to that. And the more discussions or just some more decisions about the ARPA funding. So just looking forward, there's just not a whole lot of space. I mean, the week of April 1st, where there's no meeting on Easter Monday, we have a work session on April 3rd. But we could probably, and then a meeting on the Monday, perhaps on the Saturday, the 6th, we could actually, and people have vacations and.
No, I have work. I'm going to be down in Little Rock for the eclipse on the 6th. I can't, yeah.
Okay, so you can't be around for that.
No, yeah. And I cannot reschedule the eclipse.
I'm going to Indianapolis.
Uh-huh.
I think one of the options was if we just did it on an additional day that week, either on a Tuesday or a Thursday, versus doing it on a Saturday, to ensure that people who can be here are able to be here.
Second.
I am leaving for my work trip on April 3rd. So April 2nd would be my preference of that week.
Okay. Let's pencil that in. I'd really, if that's council's
And
will.
that's for a follow-up on our retreat, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
The goals, and it'll be important to do that as we'll have a draft budget book and want to incorporate those goals into the budget book. One of the things that will be new from the administration side is we're adding pillars to our guiding principles for the budget book that builds on the council goals and objectives.
Hey, well, wait, now, if they're pillars, they have to be more than two, because if it's just two pillars, everything would kind of tip over. So you gotta have at least three.
Right now, we've got 6 pillars, and maybe we'll reduce those down to that's really stable there with 6 pillars. There'll be a Roman structure.
So, and looking over the budget schedule, I'm trying to think if there's any room where we can actually piggyback 2 of these onto one. And, the budget presentation itself on the 25th, the overview is usually pretty full. The work session on the 3rd is actually a combination. How are we going to do? It's either WSSC or reparation, or is it both?
I think we're trying to do both. The WSSC is ready to come back to council with their follow-up
On the water tower.
On the water tower, yes.
I don't know. I don't know if that's something we can actually cluster the reparation. I don't think that we can do that.
much in
It's
one
too much. Yeah. It's because I think a lot of our residents will want to hear and weigh in. So I don't think that's going to be feasible.
Could we do the reparations commission in a different way though? Instead of doing it as a traditional work session, we could do it as like a community meeting, or you know what I mean? Like we could do it somehow differently, because as the mayor said, this is something probably a lot of people will be interested in. So maybe we could just explore a different format for that.
I would also recommend that as well, because then that helps with engagement. If that's something that we can do as a community meeting in the community, and not necessarily in the council chamber, because I know we're looking for opportunities to go to other places in the city to do that.
So for that, would you want to find a time that it fits in the existing schedule, or add a new meeting?
It's going to be in that format, which, I can see that. Once again, a weekend might actually be better than during the week.
We might be able to might be more convenient for people.
Yeah, that might work. With the council retreat piece, it was really, really helpful the way that that was facilitated. So also, depending on Mr. Reynolds' availability, he did express an openness to kind of continuing to work with us. We might want to
Yeah.
bounce that off of him. He's such an asset for MML.
Yeah, so I have that April 2nd date that I'll run by him. And that would be a 9 to, I don't think we would need to go as long as we did for the retreat. It might just be an hour, 2 hour.
Right,
So
maybe 2
start
hours.
at 9 to 11.
But I think the 13th seems,
Second is a,
Second.
sorry, yeah,
That'd
it's still
be
a
an
7:30,
evening, yeah.
yes, sorry.
Right, so it'd be 7.
Yep.
I was a little worried there. I was like, Josue, I don't want to meet at from 9:30 to 11. I'm dedicated to the council, but that's
So wait now. No, Shania's waving her hand. No. Yeah, okay. She said, I don't think so. Okay, but that we might, we might start early at 7 instead of 7:30. Okay, so kind of looking down, Public Works, grants and contribution groups, Greenbelt Cinema, planning should be on its own, Public Works and capital projects. So, the first public hearing, rec in the museum. So just looking at the activities, public safety through the month of April, I don't really see any flexibility in combining the budget work sessions on those dates. The other calendar item is the Four Cities meeting. So several of the other mayors that I've spoken with casually have an interest in talking more about the PEPCO proposal on the light poles. I had the idea, I don't know if this would be possible, of maybe inviting Dr. Pines from University of Maryland to talk to the Four Cities. That's something that usually happens every couple of years and it hasn't happened for a little while. Anybody else have any strong ideas for agenda items for the Four Cities meeting?
The PEPCO one's going to be can become a lengthy conversation. I have bounced the idea with the other administrators about the exploring a feasibility study of a joint venture where the municipalities will maintain their own maintenance of their own lights.
So we would need a cherry picker truck or something to do
Right,
that.
a bucket truck.
We don't have that now.
We have bucket trucks. We would need part of the feasibility study. We'll look at what kind of equipment will we need for maintenance of lights, what kind of electric management equipment.
Would that be
and skills.
contingent on all four of the cities actually making the decision and purchasing or buying their lights back from PEPCO?
That would be part of the feasibility analysis. Would be how many lights do we need to have under our own maintenance obligations to make it worth a while? Like, does Greenbelt have enough lights? We have 888 lights. Is that right? 888 lights that we'll be responsible for buying from PEPCO plus the additional lights that we own ourselves. Are those enough lights for us to create a program to maintain our own lights, or just pay PEPCO to have maintenance over them? So it'll be part of the feasibility study is what's enough volume of lights for it to be economically feasible for us to do it.
So, I mean, that sounds like if we are going to do a deep dive into that conversation, that would probably be enough to cover the entire Four Cities meeting if staff would be in a position to really have a good discussion on that with the elected officials. Do you think you'd be in a position to do that?
I don't think so, because the conversation it's a dual track conversation. There's a administrative management piece that I think the administrations could figure out. Is there enough bandwidth from the administrations to take on the project? What would a joint venture look like? And then there's the political body, which would be council. And is there an interest in expanding the Four Cities partnership to include this program? And how do we create synergies for the four partners or more?
So yeah, or more. So it sounds like instead of rather a deep dive, it would be more of a general, not such an in-depth discussion on the possibility that could happen. So
right.
So therefore, the agenda is still kind of open.
Right,
We might
right.
bring that up as a topic, just the same. New Carrollton was really enthusiastic about having
Right,
a thorough discussion.
New Carrollton had Hyattsville had a presentation from Tanco Lighting. It seemed, I spoke with, I've shared the study with Berwyn Heights and College Park, two entities that expressed interest in looking at the feasibility study. I think once we look at the numbers and see what's going to cost us, Pepco, what it will cost us to purchase them and maintain them ourselves, we will, from an administrative perspective, we will have a clear picture of what makes financial sense. The question then comes to council is, does it make political sense? How does this relationship work with all these entities together?
Okay, council member.
One of the things, and I'm going to need Kristen and Jenny to help me out. We were in one of our NLC sessions where they were talking about funding that was available through FEMA that was not actually for like post-disaster, but was like pre-disaster.
Same conversation.
And
yeah.
it was, and one of the things we asked about was around stormwater management and whether or not those funds could be used for that. And they said absolutely. And we thought maybe there could be something that the four cities could consider going in together to look at for additional funding for stormwater management. That might be something as a discussion point in the meeting. We just would have to go back and pull the information from
Yeah,
that.
because she did say that they were interested in like collaborative grants that sort of covered more than one.
So have multi-jurisdiction or impact. We have two major stormwater projects that we're looking to develop and get funding for. That's stormwater mitigation here at the municipal center, how water flows down the parking lot. And then we have to rebuild some of our stormwater canals. And that's looks like it's going to be expensive. Kevin's taken the lead on figuring out how do we get that, what funding opportunities we can pursue for that for next year.
It actually, in broadening the question, we could, have a collective discussion with our four cities partners about funding ideas or collaborations kind of growing out of some of the NLC presentations. There's a lot of, I've got about 9 or 10 different things. I also talked with the FEMA folks, had a good discussion with HUD, got some good information from MDOT on the Safe Streets proposal, some very specific directives on how we can move forward with that. It's a great opportunity. We really do need to get something in there, so low-hanging fruit for us. And also, I talked to some folks from FRA and got some interesting information on the MagLab proposal.
I think the FEMA one, it looks like it's just called pre-disaster mitigation, or that's one option.
Yeah.
And so because I found that just by Googling it, and then I don't know if it was another named program, but I also wrote down flood mitigation assistance, and they are especially targeting underserved communities, I think, ideally. But and then there's, I think, maybe some other funding for climate resilience through FEMA, but I think, yeah.
So we've got a lot of great things from NLC to talk about. But for now, we kind of fleshed out April a little bit more. It seems like there's some room for, we should actually be, by April, we should be asking our partners for their agenda items, but we can kind of figure out what's going to happen at four cities. So I'd kind of like to wrap things up. It's a little after 10, even though the clock's, it's a little after 9. Wait.
Yeah, we should perhaps change that clock.
Yeah.
Buddy, got anything else? Any in talking with Mr. We just got back today. Is there anything else council needs to know about burning issues, information items?
We've got the dinner coming up.
Right, and we need to. We're working on a packet.
Correct.
And we need to. That'll circulate to council hopefully on Friday to get everybody's input. I think it needs to go beyond legislative items. I think since we didn't really get a chance to sit down one-on-one with our delegation, I think we need to make the conversation more general about Greenbelt's needs as opposed to specifically focusing on legislative items, because at this point, the crossover date, everything's kind of moving ahead. We're kind of almost too late to do a whole lot as far as talking to them, urging them to, it's too late for them to submit any new legislation.
So I think that opens the opportunity that we know what they've submitted and what they're sponsoring. How do we align their interests with ours? Maybe we can approach the conversation looking at what what our delegates and representatives have submitted and have sponsored.
Definitely do that. Also, just talk about some of our general needs and priorities, like the armory and just a few other things that they know about. We just need to hammer home the points that we need their support.
Right.
Okay. Hey, well, let's go ahead wrap things up. So let's call it a night. Good evening.